The marble floor was ice cold against Olivia Grant's cheek when the janitor's whisper changed everything. Don't run. 3 masked gunmen swept through First National Bank with military precision, but it was the man in the gray uniform, the one she'd passed 1,000 times without a glance, whose steady eyes promised survival. In that moment, as tactical boots thundered past and automatic weapons gleamed under fluorescent lights, CEO Olivia Grant discovered that Daniel Ross wasn't just mopping floors. He was reading the room like a soldier who'd seen far worse battlefields than this. Welcome to a story where nothing is as it seems, where corporate wars spill blood on marble floors, and where a janitor's past might be the only thing standing between a powerful woman and the enemies hunting her. Stay with me until the end, and don't forget to comment your city below. I'd love to know how far this story has traveled. The morning had started like any other Tuesday in downtown Manhattan. Olivia Grant stepped out of her Tesla at 7:47 a.m., her Louboutin heels clicking against the pavement as she approached the towering glass facade of First National Bank. The October air bit through her charcoal Armani suit, but she barely noticed. Her mind was already racing through the day's agenda, the 8:30 board meeting about the Helios chip prototype, the investor call at noon, the quarterly review that would determine whether Grant Tech maintained its edge in the defense technology sector. She pushed through the revolving doors, the familiar whoosh of climate-controlled air greeting her. The lobby stretched before her 40 feet of imported Italian marble crystal chandeliers that cost more than most people's homes, and the subtle scent of fresh lilies from the weekly $10,000 floral arrangement. This wasn't just any bank. First National catered exclusively to Fortune 500 executives and their companies. It was a temple to wealth, and Olivia was one of its high priestesses. "Morning, Ms. Grant," called Marcus, the security guard who'd manned the front desk for 15 years. His warm smile crinkled the corners of his eyes. "Good morning, Marcus. How's your grandson? Still crushing it in Little League? Hit 2 home runs last weekend." Marcus beamed, his chest puffing with pride. "Kid's got a scholarship in his future, mark my words." Olivia smiled, genuinely a rare occurrence these days. These small human connections were anchors in her increasingly isolated world. Since her divorce 2 years ago, since climbing to the CEO position that had cost her everything else, these brief exchanges were sometimes the only real conversations she had all day. She moved toward the executive elevator, fishing her access card from her Hermes bag. The morning crowd was filling in, bankers in their identical Brooks Brothers suits, a handful of early clients, the usual Tuesday morning ballet of capitalism. She noticed the janitor pushing his cart near the teller stations, his head down, focused on his work. Gray uniform, maybe mid-40s, unremarkable in every way. She'd probably passed him 100 times and couldn't recall ever really seeing him. That would change in exactly 3 minutes. Olivia had just pressed the elevator button when the first sign of wrongness hit her. It wasn't dramatic, just a subtle shift in the air like the pressure drop before a storm. She turned, instinctively scanning the lobby. Everything looked normal, but her gut, the same instinct that had saved her company from 3 hostile takeovers, was screaming. Then she saw them. 3 men had just entered through the revolving doors. They wore expensive suits, but something was off. Their movements were too coordinated, too purposeful. While other morning arrivals meandered toward their destinations, these 3 moved like a unit, their eyes sweeping the room in practiced arcs. The elevator dinged behind her. The doors slid open. She almost stepped inside. Almost. But then the man in the center reached into his jacket, and Olivia's blood turned to ice water. The morning sun caught the dull metal of an automatic weapon as he pulled it free. Time seemed to fracture, everything happening in horrible slow motion and lightning speed simultaneously. "Everybody on the ground now." The voice was professional, controlled not the panic scream of a desperate criminal, but the measured command of someone who'd done this before. The lobby erupted in chaos. Screams bounced off the marble walls. The sound of bodies hitting the floor created a percussion of fear. Olivia's mind went into overdrive, calculating options in milliseconds. The elevator was still open behind her, but she'd never make it. The main entrance was 40 feet away now, blocked by one of the gunmen. The emergency exits were on the far side of the teller stations. Her Krav Maga training from those executive protection courses felt laughably inadequate against automatic weapons. "I said, down!" The leader's rifle swung toward her. She dropped her knees, hitting the marble hard enough to send spikes of pain up her thighs. Her $8,000 suit would be ruined, she thought absurdly, as if that mattered when her life hung by a thread. The gunmen moved with military efficiency. One secured the main entrance, flipping the locks and pulling down security shutters with practiced ease. Another headed for the security desk, where Marcus sat frozen, his hand hovering near the silent alarm button he'd never reach in time. "Don't be a hero, old man," the gunman said, almost gently. "Hands on the desk." That's it. The leader, the one who'd first drawn his weapon, stood in the center of the lobby like a conductor preparing his orchestra. Through the eye slits of his tactical mask, his gaze was cold, calculating. This wasn't a smash and grab. This was something else. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his voice carrying that same unnerving professionalism, "this will be over quickly if everyone cooperates. We're not here for your wallets or your jewelry. Stay down, stay quiet, and you'll have a story to tell at dinner tonight. Try to be a hero." He let the rifle's barrel drift across the crowd of prone bodies. "And you won't make it to dinner." Olivia pressed herself flatter against the cold marble, her cheek against the floor. From this angle, she could see under the teller stations, could watch feet moving in their choreographed dance. That's when she noticed the janitor. He was down like everyone else, maybe 15 feet to her left, his gray uniform making him nearly invisible against the floor. But while everyone else radiated terror bodies, rigid breathing, and panicked gasps, he was utterly still, too still. His breathing was controlled, measured, and his eyes were tracking the gunman with the focused intensity of a predator watching prey. Their gazes met across the polished floor. Olivia expected to see fear reflected back at her, the same terror that was probably written across her own face. Instead, she saw something that made her breath catch recognition. Not of her, he was looking at the situation, reading it like a familiar text. That's when he whispered it, "Don't run." The words were barely audible, meant only for her. She wanted to ask what he meant, wanted to know how he could be so calm, but his eyes had already shifted back to tracking the gunman. "Colin," the leader called out, and Olivia's attention snapped to the teller stations. "You're up." A teller stood Colin Weatherby, she realized, one of the senior staff members. But instead of the terror she expected to see on his face, there was grim determination. He moved to his station with purpose, his fingers flying over the keyboard. The inside man. Jesus Christ, this had been planned from the inside. 2 minutes, Colin said, his voice steady. The system's running its authentication cycle. 2 minutes for what Olivia's mind raced. The bank dealt with massive wire transfers daily, but those required multiple authorizations. The safety deposit boxes were in the basement vault, time-locked until 9 a.m. What could they be after that Colin could access in 2 minutes? Then it hit her like a physical blow. The Helios chip. Her prototype was in the bank's ultra-secure private vault, the one reserved for items too sensitive for traditional safety deposit boxes. The vault that Colin, as a senior teller, had partial access to. The chip that could revolutionize military defense systems that 3 governments were bidding on, that her competitor Victor Crane at Prometheus Industries would kill to possess. No, not would kill. Was killing, right now. 60 seconds, Colin announced. The leader moved closer to the teller stations, his rifle casual but ready. The other 2 gunmen maintained their positions with military discipline. No wasted movement, no nervous energy. These weren't street criminals driven by desperation or addiction. These were professionals, and that terrified Olivia more than any junkie with a gun ever could. You. The leader's voice cut through her thoughts. She looked up to find him standing directly over her, that cold gaze boring into her. Olivia Grant. Her name on his lips felt like ice down her spine. I have a message for you, he continued, loud enough for only her to hear. Your board sends its regards. The board. Her mind reeled. The board of directors had been pressuring her about the Helios project, wanting her to accept Prometheus Industries' offer to partner. She'd refused, knowing it was just Victor Crane's attempt to steal her technology legally. But this wasn't legal maneuvering anymore. 30 seconds, Colin called. The janitor shifted slightly, and Olivia caught the movement in her peripheral vision. His hand had moved under his cart, and she glimpsed something that made her heart race faster, the grip of a handgun carefully concealed beneath cleaning supplies. Who the hell was this man? Don't... She breathed so quietly she wasn't sure he'd heard. If he drew that weapon, they were all dead. 3 automatic rifles against 1 hidden pistol wasn't a fight, it was a massacre. But Daniel Ross wasn't planning to draw. Not yet. His eyes remained fixed on the gunman, particularly on the one guarding the entrance. That one was getting antsy, his weight shifting from foot to foot. The other 2 were still professional, but this one was the weak link. Time, Colin announced. I'm in. The leader moved to the computer, studying the screen. Transfer initiated, 90 seconds for completion. Transfer. They weren't physically stealing the chip. Olivia's mind raced through the implications. The Helios data was encrypted with quantum keys that would take decades to break, unless they had her personal authorization codes, the ones only she and the board knew, the ones that were supposed to be unbreachable. Your board sends its regards. The betrayal hit her like a physical blow. Someone on her own board had sold her out to Victor Crane. Someone she trusted had handed over the keys to everything she'd built. 75 seconds. The antsy gunman at the door was getting worse. His head kept swiveling toward the windows, checking the street. Even through the dropped security shutters, the morning sun created patterns of light and shadow that clearly made him nervous. Steady, the leader called to him, irritation creeping into that professional tone. Something's wrong, the antsy one replied. The response time is exactly what we calculated. Stay focused. But Olivia could see what the leader apparently couldn't from his position. The gunman's trigger finger was no longer properly indexed along the rifle's receiver. It was curling toward the trigger itself. One surprise, one sudden movement, and that finger would squeeze reflexively. The janitor saw it too. She could tell by the way his body had shifted, almost imperceptibly, weight transferring to the balls of his feet. 60 seconds. A phone rang. The sound was shocking in the tense silence, an old-fashioned landline ring from the reception desk. Everyone flinched. The antsy gunman's rifle swung toward the sound, his finger dropping to the trigger. Leave it, the leader commanded. But the damage was done. The gunman was spiraling, his professional composure cracking. They know, he said. The cops know. We need to finish the job. The leader cut him off. 45 seconds. The phone kept ringing. Each blast of sound ratcheted the tension higher. Olivia could feel it building like pressure in a cylinder, could see it in the white knuckles of prone bank customers, in the trembling of the woman next to her who was quietly sobbing into the marble floor. The janitor's hand moved another inch toward his concealed weapon. 30 seconds. Almost there, Colin said, sweat now beading on his forehead despite the climate control. The encryption's fighting me, but... A siren wailed in the distance. The antsy gunman lost it. We're blown. We need to go now. 20 seconds, the leader said, but Olivia heard the first crack in his composure. The siren grew louder. Then another joined it, and another. Abort, the antsy gunman shouted, already backing toward the entrance. I'm not going back to prison for this. You move, you die, the leader said, and now his rifle was aimed at his own man. 15 seconds. The tension was unbearable. Olivia felt like her heart might explode from her chest. The woman next to her had stopped crying, holding her breath. Even Marcus at the security desk had gone rigid. 10 seconds. The sirens were definitely getting closer, multiple vehicles converging on their location. Got it, Colin shouted. Transfer complete. Wipe the terminal. The leader ordered, already moving. 30 seconds to exit. They were really going to do it. They were going to walk out with her life's work with technology that could shift global power balances, and there was nothing she could... The antsy gunman cracked. Maybe it was the sirens. Maybe it was the pressure. Maybe it was just bad luck. But as he spun toward the door, his rifle swept across the prone hostages and his finger squeezed. The burst of gunfire was deafening in the marble lobby. Bullets stitched across the floor, sending chips of Italian marble flying like shrapnel. The woman next to Olivia screamed. Someone else cried out in pain, and Daniel Ross moved. It happened so fast that Olivia's brain couldn't properly process it. One moment, the janitor was prone on the floor. The next, he was flowing to his feet with a grace that belonged in a martial arts movie, not a bank robbery. His hand came out from under the cart, holding not a gun, but a tactical knife that materialized like magic. The antsy gunman was still turning, still firing when Daniel reached him. The knife moved in a silver arc, finding the gap between the man's tactical vest and helmet. The gunman dropped like his strings had been cut, his rifle clattering across the marble. The other two gunmen were already reacting, their weapons swinging toward the new threat. But Daniel was already moving. He rolled behind a marble pillar as bullets sparked off the stone, came out the other side with the fallen gunman's rifle in his hands. The exchange of gunfire was brutal and brief. Daniel moved like smoke, never where the gunmen expected him to be. His shots were precise, controlled targeting weapons and extremities rather than center mass. He wasn't trying to kill them, he was disabling them. The leader got off 3 bursts before Daniel's shot caught his rifle, sending it spinning from his hands. The second gunman tried to flank, but Daniel had already anticipated it was already there, the rifle stock crashing into the man's temple with a sound like a baseball bat hitting a watermelon. In less than 10 seconds, it was over. 3 gunmen down. The lobby filled with the acrid smell of cordite and the moans of the wounded. And Daniel Ross, standing in the center of it all, rifle held with the easy competence of someone who'd held far too many weapons in his life. The sirens were right outside now. Red and blue lights painted patterns through the security shutters. Daniel looked at the leader, who was clutching his injured hand, then at Colin, who stood frozen at his terminal. The transfer, Daniel said, his voice carrying an authority that hadn't been there in his whispered warning. Reverse it, now. I can't, Colin stammered. It's already... Daniel fired a shot that took out the computer monitor an inch from Colin's head. Try harder. Colin's fingers flew over the keyboard, terror making him efficient. But after 30 seconds, he shook his head. It's gone. Routed through 17 proxies and into a quantum-encrypted server. I couldn't reverse it if I had a week. The leader laughed a wet sound through what was probably a broken nose. You think you've won something, Janitor? You have no idea what you've stepped into. This was just the opening move. Daniel walked over to him, crouched down. Prometheus Industries, Victor Crane. The leader's eyes widened behind his mask. How did you... Because I've been watching, waiting. Daniel pulled something from the leader's vest, a small communication device. And now they know I'm involved, which means they'll come harder next time. This isn't your fight, the leader said. Daniel stood, his gaze finding Olivia across the chaos. It is now. The police were at the doors shouting commands. Daniel set down the rifle, raised his hands, but his eyes never left Olivia's. In them, she saw a promise and a warning. This isn't over. As the police flooded in, as EMTs rushed to the wounded, as the chaos of aftermath engulfed the lobby, Olivia's mind was spinning with questions. Who was Daniel Ross? How had he known what would happen? And most importantly, why had a janitor just saved her life with skills that belonged to special forces, not someone who pushed a mop for a living? Ma'am, are you injured? An EMT was kneeling beside her, checking for wounds. I'm fine, she managed. Though nothing about this situation was fine. Across the lobby, police were cuffing Daniel along with everyone else, standard procedure, until they could sort out what had happened. But just before they led him away, he caught her eye one more time. They'll come for you, he mouthed silently. Be ready. Then he was gone, disappeared into the maze of police procedures and witness statements that would consume the next several hours. But his warning echoed in Olivia's mind as she sat in the back of an ambulance, a shock blanket around her shoulders that she didn't remember anyone putting there. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. The Helios data is gone, but that's not what they're really after. Check your home security, now. D. Daniel. With shaking fingers, she pulled up her home security app. Everything looked normal, the house in Westchester sitting quietly in the morning sun, the grounds peaceful. But as she cycled through the cameras, she noticed it. The front door camera showed the morning newspaper on the porch. She distinctly remembered bringing it in before leaving. Someone had been in her house. After she'd left, they were still there. Her blood turned to ice as she watched a shadow move past an interior window, then another. At least 2 people inside her home waiting for her to return. Another text, Don't go home. Meet me at Grand Central Lower Level Track 117 in 2 hours. Come alone. Trust no one else. Your board sold you out, but that's just the beginning. D. Olivia looked around at the chaos surrounding her. Police FBI agents who'd just arrived her own security team that had somehow missed everything. Any of them could be compromised. The betrayal went deeper than just Colin and the board. This was a web, and she was the spider's prey. But now she had something unexpected, a guardian angel in a janitor's uniform one, with skills that suggested his own dark past. The question was whether she could trust him, or if she was jumping from one web into another. Her phone rang. Victor Crane's name appeared on the screen. Against her better judgment, she answered. Olivia? Victor's smooth voice oozed false concern. I just heard about the terrible incident at the bank. Thank God you're safe. Cut the act, Victor. I know you were behind this. A pause. Then a chuckle. Behind it? My dear, I'm trying to save you from it. The Helios technology is too dangerous for one company to control. There are forces at play here you can't imagine. Forces you're controlling, forces I'm trying to manage. There's a difference. The attack today was messy amateur, not my style at all. But now that the data is out there in the wild, we need to work together to contain it. You stole it. I acquired it, Victor corrected, to keep it from people who would do far worse things with it. Meet with me, Olivia. Let me explain everything. 1 hour, the Prometheus building. I'll guarantee your safety. My safety? Like you guaranteed it this morning. Another pause. The janitor, Ross. You should know he's not who he claims to be. His real name is... Olivia hung up. She didn't want to hear Victor's version of Daniel's identity. She'd rather hear it from the man himself. But Victor's call had revealed something important. They didn't know Daniel had made contact with her. They thought he was just a wild card who'd interfered with their plan. She deleted Daniel's text, then stood from the ambulance. I need to go, she told the EMT. Ma'am, you should really be checked for shock. I'm fine. She spotted Detective Morrison, the lead investigator. Detective, I've told you everything I know. I need to get to my office, deal with the fallout from this. Morrison looked skeptical. Ms. Grant, you're a material witness to a major crime. And frankly, given that you seem to have been specifically targeted, am I under arrest? No, but then I'm leaving. You have my contact information. She walked away before he could protest further, hailing a cab at the corner. Grand Central, she told the driver. Then added, take the long way. I need to make some calls. As the cab pulled into traffic, Olivia gazed back at the bank, now surrounded by emergency vehicles and media vans. In a few hours, her face would be on every news channel. The story would go viral, tech CEO survives dramatic bank heist. But they'd all be missing the real story. This wasn't about money or even the Helios chip. This was about power control and secrets buried so deep that a man had hidden behind a mop for God knew how long just to stay invisible. Her phone buzzed. Her head of security. Ms. Grant, where are you? We've lost your signal. She'd forgotten about the tracker in her company phone. Without hesitation, she powered it down and removed the SIM card, dropping it out the cab window at the next red light. For the first time in her corporate life, Olivia Grant was truly alone. No security detail, no assistant managing her schedule, no board of directors pretending to have her back while plotting her downfall. Just her and a mystery man who mopped floors with the same hands that had just taken down 3 armed professionals. Change of plans, she told the cab driver. Take me to the Westfield Mall first. I need to do some shopping. If she was going off the grid, she'd need a new phone, different clothes, and cash. Lots of cash. The corporate credit cards were probably already compromised. As the cab navigated Manhattan traffic, Olivia's mind worked through everything she knew. The Helios chip's data was gone stolen by someone on her own board working with Victor Crane, but Daniel had said that wasn't what they were really after. So what was the only thing more valuable than the chip itself would be? Her. Her knowledge of how to build it, improve it, and most importantly, how to counter it. The chip was just technology. She was the mind behind it. They weren't trying to steal from her. They were trying to acquire her. The attack at the bank had been meant to fail. Oh, they'd wanted the data as a bonus, but the real goal was to frighten her, isolate her, make her run to the only safe harbor they'd left available, Victor Crane and Prometheus Industries. But they hadn't counted on Daniel Ross. Her new burner phone, purchased with cash at an electronics kiosk, buzzed with an incoming text. How had he gotten the number? She hadn't given it to anyone. Good instinct, ditching the company phone. You're learning. Change in plans. They're watching Grand Central. New location, the Bethesda Fountain Central Park. 1 hour. Look for the hot dog vendor with the Yankees cap. D. Olivia smiled grimly. He was testing her, making sure she wasn't being followed, wasn't compromised. Smart. But she had her own test to run. She Googled Daniel Ross Janitor First National Bank on her burner phone. No results. She tried variations, searched social media employment databases she could access. Nothing. Daniel Ross didn't exist in any digital footprint she could find. But then she tried a different search. Military contractors disappeared 2019. It was a hunch based on the way he'd moved, the precision of his violence. The results were mostly news articles about various scandals, but one caught her eye. Blackwater operative presumed dead after Afghanistan mission goes wrong. But the article was thin on details, classified information blocking most of the story. But there was a photo of the operative's unit faces blurred for security, all except one that had been partially revealed due to a technical error. The jawline, the build, it could be Daniel. The operative's code name was mentioned once, Shepherd, as in someone who protects the flock. The cab pulled up to Central Park. Olivia paid in cash, pulled the baseball cap she'd bought low over her eyes, and entered the park. The normalcy of it all was surreal: joggers passing by, tourists taking photos, children playing. None of them knew that their world balanced on the edge of something dangerous. She found the Bethesda Fountain easily enough, and sure enough, there was a hot dog vendor in a Yankees cap. But as she approached, she noticed something: his hands. They were too steady, too clean. No one who handled hot dogs all day had hands that pristine. "You hungry?" the vendor asked, but his eyes were scanning the area behind her. "Depends on what you're serving," she replied carefully. He smiled slightly. "Boss says you're clear. Southwest Path, third bench. He'll find you." Olivia walked in the indicated direction, her nerves singing with tension. Every person she passed could be a threat. Every shadow could hide an enemy. This was what her life had become in the span of 3 hours. She found the bench and sat, trying to look casual. The minutes stretched like hours. Then suddenly he was there, sitting beside her as if he'd materialized from thin air. Daniel Ross looked different out of his janitor's uniform. He wore jeans and a simple jacket, but she could see the warrior beneath the casual clothes now. The way he sat allowed him to see every approach. His hands rested in positions that could reach concealed weapons in fractions of seconds. "They're gone," he said without preamble. "The men waiting at your house. They left 20 minutes ago when you didn't show." "How do you know?" "I've been watching them watch you for 3 weeks." The implications of that statement hit her like a slap. 3 weeks? You've known this was coming for 3 weeks. I've known something was coming for 3 months. It took me 3 weeks to narrow it down to you and the Helios project. "Who are you?" The question came out as barely a whisper. Daniel was quiet for a long moment, watching a family feed ducks at the pond. Someone who made powerful enemies. Someone who died in Afghanistan officially. Someone who came back to find his life erased and his daughter threatened if he ever surfaced again. Daughter. The word humanized him in a way nothing else could have. "They let me live on one condition," he continued, "that I stay dead. No contact with my former life, no using my skills, no drawing attention, so I became invisible. A janitor. Nobody looks at the janitor." "But you acted today. You broke your cover." "Because they broke the rules first." His voice hardened. 3 weeks ago, someone accessed my sealed records. Someone very powerful with very deep connections. They were looking for pressure points, weaknesses. They found my daughter. Victor Crane. Crane is middle management in this game. There are players here you've never heard of, Olivia. Defense contractors who make Prometheus look like a corner store. Government officials who've forgotten which flag they serve. And now they all want what's in your head. The Helios technology. No. Daniel turned to look at her directly. Helios is version 1. What they want is what you haven't built yet. Version 2. The one that makes Helios obsolete. Olivia's blood ran cold. How could they know about Project Aurora, the theoretical framework you've been developing in private, the quantum entangled defense system that would make traditional warfare impossible? That's impossible. I haven't told anyone. The files are encrypted on an air-gapped computer that never touches any network. Your board member Harrison Blackwood, he's been in your home office, photographed your handwritten notes during the dinner party you hosted last month. The violation of it made her sick. Harrison had been her mentor, had helped her build Grant Tech from nothing. I need proof. Daniel pulled out a phone, showed her photos. Harrison in her office using a micro camera. Harrison meeting with men she didn't recognize in a parking garage. Harrison receiving an envelope that undoubtedly contained more money than most people saw in a lifetime. My God. He's just the tip of the iceberg. Richardson is compromised too, and your CFO Jennifer Walsh. Jennifer. But she's my friend. We've known each other since college. They got to her through her son. He has a drug problem she's been hiding. They've been supplying him in exchange for information. Olivia felt her world crumbling. Everyone she trusted, everyone she'd built her empire with had betrayed her. So what do I do if the entire board is compromised? Not the entire board. You have 2 allies left, but they don't know about each other or the full scope of what's happening. Margaret Chen and Douglas Porter. Chen's clean because she's too new, only joined 6 months ago. Porter's clean because he's too stubborn and too rich to be bought or blackmailed. How long have you been investigating my life? Long enough to know you're in over your head, but also long enough to know you're the only one who can stop what's coming. Which is... Daniel was quiet for a moment, watching a jogger pass. When he spoke again, his voice was grim. A complete restructuring of global defense. Imagine if one company or one shadow organization controlled technology that could shut down any military system on the planet. No more balance of power. No more mutually assured destruction, keeping the peace. Just one finger on the button that could turn any nation's defenses into useless metal. Aurora isn't weaponized, it's purely defensive. In your hands, yes. In theirs. He shook his head. They'll turn it into the ultimate offensive weapon. Strike anywhere, anytime with complete impunity, because no one can strike back. The full horror of it washed over Olivia. Her life's work, her dream of making war obsolete through defense technology, could become the tool of absolute oppression. We have to stop them. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Yesterday, I was nobody. Today, I'm a wanted man who killed someone in a bank. After tomorrow, every intelligence agency in the world will be hunting me. I should be running. But you're not. No. His jaw tightened. Because they threatened my daughter, Emma. She's 9 years old, lives with her aunt who thinks I'm dead. She's safe as long as I play dead, but if I surface, if I fight back, they'll hurt her. Or worse, use her as leverage to make me work for them. He stood abruptly. Which is why you need to forget you ever met me. Go to Crane, take his deal. Buy yourself time to figure out a countermove. You're abandoning me. Olivia stood too, anger flashing through her fear. I'm saving you and my daughter. The moment they realize we're working together, both our lives are over. Our lives are already over. The words came out louder than intended, drawing looks from passers-by. She lowered her voice. The moment I walk into Prometheus, I become a prisoner with a corner office. And you? How long before they decide a dead man with your skills is too dangerous to leave wandering around? Daniel's phone buzzed. He checked it, his face going pale. No. What? He showed her the screen. A photo of a young girl with Daniel's eyes and a brilliant smile walking home from school. The message beneath it read, "Beautiful daughter, shame if something happened to her. Meet us or she disappears." How did they? Olivia began. I was too careful. Never made contact, never went near her. His hands were shaking, the first sign of real emotion she'd seen from him. Unless... His eyes met hers with terrible understanding. This was never about the Helios data, Olivia breathed. The bank, the attack, it was all to force you to reveal yourself, to protect me. They knew I was watching, knew I'd have to act if lives were in danger. His voice was bitter. And I walked right into it. Another text arrived. 1 hour, Prometheus Industries underground parking level B3. Both of you. Or little Emma learns what happened to Daddy in Afghanistan. Both of us, Olivia noted. They want us together. Leverage against each other. You'll do what they want to protect a stranger's child because that's who you are, and I'll do whatever they want to protect Emma. So what do we do? Daniel looked at the photo of his daughter again, and Olivia saw him make a decision that would change everything. We don't play by their rules, he said quietly. There's something they don't know, someone they haven't accounted for. Who? The real reason I became a janitor at that particular bank. I wasn't just hiding, I was hunting. He turned to face her fully. My unit in Afghanistan, we weren't just military contractors. We were investigating a Defense Department leak. Someone was selling military secrets to private corporations. The trail led back to New York to a specific bank that was laundering the payments. First National. I've been gathering evidence for 3 years. Names, accounts, transactions. Everything I needed to expose the whole network. I was 2 weeks away from having enough to take to the Justice Department when you became a target. So you chose to save me instead of completing your mission. I chose to save an innocent woman, but maybe I can do both. He pulled out a different phone, one she hadn't seen before. This contains everything I've gathered, every crime, every traitor, every payment. It's encrypted with a dead man switch. If I don't enter a code every 12 hours, it uploads to every major news outlet and law enforcement agency in the world. Your insurance policy. Our insurance policy now. He handed her the phone. The code is Emma's birthday backward, 4102151. If something happens to me, nothing's going to happen to you. We're going to save your daughter and stop these bastards. How they hold all the cards. Olivia smiled for the first time since the bank. No, they don't. They need me functional, capable of working on Aurora, which means they can't push me too far. And you're the most dangerous man they've ever tried to corner. Together we're still outnumbered and outgunned. In a straight fight, yes, but this isn't going to be a straight fight. She pulled out her burner phone. You said Margaret Chen and Douglas Porter are clean. Yes, but then we have allies, and I have resources they don't know about. Emergency funds in cryptocurrency, off-the-book safe houses from my paranoid early startup days, and most importantly, the real Aurora files. You said they were on an air-gapped computer. The decoy files are. The real ones, she tapped her temple. Up here. I learned long ago never to write down anything truly valuable. Daniel stared at her with something approaching respect. You've been playing a longer game than anyone realized. I'm a woman in tech who climbed to the top of a male-dominated industry. I've always had to play a longer game. Her phone buzzed with an alert. 45 minutes. We need to move. I know a way into Prometheus that they won't expect. But first we need to make a stop. Where? My apartment, the real one, not the cover identity's rat hole. If we're walking into the lion's den, we're going armed. They left the park separately, taking different exits, different routes. Olivia hailed a cab to a location 3 blocks from the actual destination, while Daniel disappeared into the subway. They reconvened at a building in Queens that looked abandoned from the outside. Charming, Olivia muttered. That's the point. Daniel led her to a service entrance through a maze of hallways that shouldn't exist according to the building's official floor plan. Finally, they reached a door that looked like a maintenance closet, but opened into something else entirely. The apartment beyond was a study in contrasts, sparse, military efficient, but with touches of humanity, a child's drawing framed on one wall, a photo of a younger Daniel in uniform, with his unit a small collection of well-worn books. But it was the wall of weapons that drew Olivia's attention. Rifles, handguns, knives, and things she couldn't even identify, all meticulously maintained and organized. Jesus, were you planning to start a war? Planning to survive one. Daniel moved to the wall, selecting weapons with practiced efficiency. Can you shoot? I took lessons after my first death threat 2 years ago. Lessons. He shook his head. Here. He handed her a compact Glock 19. Point and squeeze. Don't overthink it. That's your advice, don't overthink it. In a firefight. Yes, thinking gets you killed. Reacting keeps you alive. He strapped on a shoulder holster slid in a Sig Sauer. A knife went into his boot, another inside his jacket. But with any luck, we won't need these. Then why bring them? Because luck is for amateurs. He moved to a safe hidden behind the framed drawing, pulled out a thick envelope. And because I'd rather be tried by 12 than carried by 6. What's that mean? Better to face a jury for killing someone than have 6 pallbearers at your funeral. He opened the envelope, revealing multiple passports, credit cards, cash, and various currencies. If this goes sideways, if we have to run, these will buy us time. I'm not running. Not anymore. Even if it means Emma, we're saving Emma. All of us. No one gets left behind. She checked her phone. 20 minutes. How do we get into Prometheus without walking through the front door? Daniel smiled grimly. Through the one entrance Victor Crane doesn't know about, the one I installed 3 months ago when I did a reconnaissance run disguised as an HVAC repair tech. You've been planning this for 3 months. I've been planning for every contingency for 3 months. Prometheus was always a possibility. He moved to a laptop, pulled up building schematics. There's a maintenance tunnel that connects to the old subway access. It's been sealed for 40 years, but I unsealed it. Leads directly to sub-basement level B2. From there we can access B3 without going through their security. Won't they have cameras? They will, which is why we're going to give them something to look at. He pulled up another screen showing what looked like security footage. I've had their system compromised for weeks. At exactly 3:47, every camera in B2 and B3 will show a loop of empty corridors for 15 minutes. Enough time to get in, get Emma, and get out. What about the men holding her? That's where it gets complicated. His expression darkened. If they have her, it won't be a simple grab. They'll have leverage, probably multiple guns on her at all times. One wrong move. We'll get her back, Olivia said firmly. But Daniel, you know this is a trap, right? They want both of us there. Whatever happens, they're not planning to let us leave. I know, which is why we're not really going to be there. What? He pulled out 2 small devices, holographic projectors, military grade borrowed from my old unit's equipment that was never returned. They'll create realistic 3D images of us that can even interact with basic environmental factors. Good enough to fool someone for maybe 5 minutes if they're not looking too close. 5 minutes isn't long. It's long enough if we use them right. We go in real, make contact, then switch to holograms while we circle around behind them. That's insane. That's Tuesday in Special Ops. He checked his equipment one more time. You sure you want to do this? Last chance to walk away? I told you I'm not walking away. These people destroyed my company, betrayed my trust, and threatened an innocent child. They're going to learn what happens when you corner someone with nothing left to lose. Daniel nodded slowly. All right then, let's go save my daughter and burn their whole operation to the ground. They left through a different exit, taking Daniel's nondescript Honda Civic that was registered to another one of his false identities. As they drove through Queens toward Manhattan, toward whatever waited for them in the depths of Prometheus Industries, Olivia found herself thinking about how much had changed in just a few hours. This morning, she'd been a CEO worried about quarterly reports and board meetings. Now she was armed allied with a ghost and about to infiltrate one of the most secure buildings in New York. Daniel, she said as they neared the tunnel entrance he'd described. After this is over, if we survive, what then? Then we disappear. New identities, new lives, somewhere they'll never find us. All of us. You, me, and Emma. He glanced at her. You do that. Leave everything behind. Everything I built is already gone, stolen, corrupted, or compromised. Maybe it's time to build something new, something better. With a killer and his daughter. With a protector and a child who deserves a chance at a normal life. She checked the Glock's magazine, surprising herself with how natural the motion felt. Besides, normal is overrated. Daniel actually smiled a real smile that transformed his face. You're either the bravest or the craziest woman I've ever met. ¿Por qué no los dos? She replied, and was rewarded with an actual laugh. But the moment of levity passed quickly as they reached the tunnel entrance. Reality crashed back somewhere in the building looming above them. A 9-year-old girl was being held hostage. The men waiting for them had all the advantages, numbers, position, preparation. All Daniel and Olivia had was determination, desperation, and the element of surprise. As Daniel picked the lock on the tunnel entrance, Olivia sent a quick message from her burner phone to Margaret Chen. Board compromised. Hostile takeover imminent. Gather the loyal shareholders. War begins tonight. Then she followed Daniel into the darkness, ready to face whatever came next. The tunnel smelled of decades of neglect, rust mold, and something else that might have been dead rats. Their footsteps echoed despite their efforts to move quietly. Emergency lighting that Daniel had installed cast eerie shadows on the walls. "Stay close," he whispered, "and whatever happens, remember. React, don't think. I got it." They reached the access point to B2. Daniel checked his watch. 30 seconds until the camera loop starts. Those 30 seconds felt like 30 years. Then Daniel's phone vibrated once the signal that the loop was active. They emerged into a pristine corporate hallway, the contrast to the tunnel jarring. Everything here was marble and glass cold efficiency that probably cost millions to achieve. This way, Daniel led her through a maze of corridors moving with purpose but not haste. To anyone watching, they might have been maintenance workers or lost visitors. They reached the stairwell to B3. Daniel paused, pulling out a small device that he ran along the door frame. Clean. No additional sensors. They descended into B3, which was different from the floor above. Darker, more industrial. This was where Prometheus kept things they didn't want the public to see. "The parking section is through here," Daniel whispered, leading her through another door. The underground parking was vast, filled with expensive vehicles and shadows. At the far end, Olivia could see a cluster of people around a black SUV. Her heart clenched when she saw the small figure between them. Emma, looking terrified but trying to be brave, just like her father. Victor Crane stood beside the SUV like a maestro preparing for his final performance, his silver hair gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights of the underground parking garage. Even from 50 yards away, Olivia could see the satisfaction on his face, the smug certainty of a man who believed he'd already won. 4 men flanked him, all wearing tactical gear that looked military-grade but bore no insignia, their weapons held with the casual competence of professionals who'd killed before and wouldn't hesitate to kill again. Emma stood between 2 of them, her small frame dwarfed by their bulk. She wore her school uniform, the one from the photo, but it was wrinkled now, torn at one sleeve. Her face was pale, but composed, showing a strength that no 9-year-old should have to possess. She was her father's daughter, Olivia realized, seeing the same quiet defiance in her young eyes that she'd seen in Daniel's at the bank. "She's being brave," Daniel whispered, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. "Too brave. They've threatened her with something worse than just hurting her." "How can you tell?" "The way she's standing, not trying to run, not crying. They've told her that if she doesn't cooperate, someone else gets hurt, probably her aunt." His hands clenched into fists. Classic psychological manipulation. Make the victim complicit in their own captivity. Olivia felt her own anger rising, a cold fury that surprised her with its intensity. She'd faced corporate sharks before, hostile takeovers, betrayals that cost millions. But this was different. This was a child being used as a pawn in a game she hadn't chosen to play. "Positions?" Daniel murmured, his tactical mind already working. 2 shooters high, probably more we can't see. The cars are arranged to create a kill box. If we walk in there straight, we're dead before we take 3 steps. So we use the holograms. Not yet. First, we need to change the game board. He pulled out his phone, fingers flying over the screen. "I'm triggering a fire alarm on B1. In about 30 seconds, this place is going to get very busy." "Won't they just ignore it?" "Corporate security won't. They're legally required to investigate. That'll pull at least some of their backup away." He handed her a small earpiece. "Put this in. Once we separate, this is how we stay connected." The earpiece was nearly invisible once in place. Olivia heard Daniel's voice crystal clear in her ear as he continued, "When the alarm goes off, you're going to walk straight toward them. Hands visible, no sudden movements. You're the prize they want, functional. They won't shoot you. And you, I'll be exactly where they don't expect me." He pulled something from his jacket, a small device that looked like a car key fob. "This controls the holograms. Once you're close enough, hit the red button. It'll project both our images from the emitters I'm about to place." "How will I know when—" "You'll know." His eyes met hers, dark and serious. Olivia, whatever happens, if I tell you to run, you run. Don't look back. Don't try to help. Just run. I'm not leaving you or Emma. You will if I tell you to, because if this goes wrong, someone needs to survive to expose them. That's you. The evidence the dead man switch, everything depends on you getting out. Before she could argue, the fire alarm erupted above them, a piercing wail that echoed through the parking structure. As Daniel had predicted, several of the tactical dressed men immediately spoke into radios, two of them jogging toward the stairwell. Now, Daniel breathed. Walk. Slowly. Hands where they can see them. Olivia stepped out from their cover, her heart hammering so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. The remaining men immediately trained their weapons on her laser sights, creating a constellation of red dots on her chest. Ms. Grant, Victor called out, his voice carrying easily across the space. Right on time, though I expected you to use the front door like a civilized person. Civilization went out the window when you kidnapped a child, Victor. Her voice was steadier than she felt, anger overriding fear. Kidnapped. Such an ugly word. Let's call it protective custody. After all, with her father being so unpredictable, who knows what might happen to poor Emma here? The girl flinched at her name, but didn't speak. Up close now, Olivia could see the tear tracks on her cheeks, though her eyes were dry now. She was running on pure courage, and it was running out. I'm here, Olivia said now, 20 feet away. Let her go. Oh, we will. Once you and Mr. Ross agree to our terms. Speaking of which, where is our mysterious janitor? I know he's here. My men saw you both enter the tunnels. Right here! Daniel's voice came from everywhere and nowhere, echoing off the concrete walls. The men spun weapons, searching for a target, but he remained invisible. Did you really think I'd walk into your kill box, Crane? I think you'll do whatever it takes to save your daughter. Fathers are so predictable that way. Victor pulled out a pistol, pressed it against Emma's head. The girl went rigid, but still didn't make a sound. Show yourself, or I'll demonstrate just how serious I am. Daddy, don't... Emma's voice broke the silence, small and terrified. They want to hurt you. Don't come out. Olivia's hand found the hologram control in her pocket. Not yet, she told herself. Wait for the moment. Such a brave little thing, Victor said, his tone conversational, as if they were discussing the weather instead of threatening a child's life. You've raised her well, Ross. It would be a shame to end that raising prematurely. You hurt her, you lose all leverage. Daniel's voice was closer now, though Olivia still couldn't see him. Do I? I think Ms. Grant would be quite motivated to cooperate after watching something so traumatic. Wouldn't you, Olivia? The sound of her first name from his lips made her skin crawl. What do you want, Victor? Really? This isn't just about Aurora or the Helios chip. This is something bigger. Clever as always. He smiled, the expression not reaching his eyes. You're right, of course. This is about the future, about who controls it. Governments are obsolete, constrained by borders and bureaucracy. Corporations like ours. We're the new world order, but only if we have the right tools. Tools like Aurora. Tools like you, my dear. Aurora is just code and mathematics. You're the mind that can evolve it, improve it, weaponize it properly. With Ross here providing the tactical applications, the two of you could create something that would make nuclear weapons look like firecrackers. We'll never work for you, Daniel said, and suddenly he was visible stepping out from behind a concrete pillar 30 feet to Victor's left. Every weapon immediately swung toward him. Never is such a long time, Victor said, and you'd be surprised what people will do when properly motivated. For instance, Emma here has an aunt, doesn't she? Sarah, I believe, lovely woman. Elementary school teacher? It would be tragic if something happened to her. Car accident, perhaps. Or maybe a home invasion gone wrong. Emma made a small sound, the first crack in her composure. Daniel took a step forward, and every laser sight centered on his chest. Then there's your extended network, Ross, Victor continued. Your old unit members who helped you disappear. Martinez in Texas, Washington, and Florida. Chen in Seattle. Oh yes, we know about all of them. Their families too. How many people are you willing to sacrifice for your principles? You're talking about mass murder, Olivia said, horrified. I'm talking about consequences. Every choice has them. You can choose to cooperate and everyone lives happily ever after. Or you can choose to resist and people start dying. Not all at once, of course. We'll start small. Maybe Chen's daughter breaks her leg in a skiing accident. Compound fracture, very nasty. Then Martinez's wife gets food poisoning, but it's a particularly virulent strain. Each incident worse than the last until you both understand that resistance truly is futile. You're insane, Olivia breathed. I'm practical. The world is changing, Ms. Grant. Climate collapse, resource wars, population displacement, chaos is coming. Someone needs to maintain order, and that someone needs absolute power to do it. Your technology provides that power. Daniel had moved closer during Victor's monologue, now only 15 feet from his daughter. Olivia could see him calculating angles, distance, probabilities. But there were too many guns, too many variables. Even he couldn't take them all before someone got hurt. That's when Olivia noticed something Victor hadn't one of his men. The one furthest from the group was acting strange. His weapon was still raised, but his stance had shifted. He was facing outward now, watching the stairwell instead of Daniel. Her earpiece crackled. When I move, you hit the button, Daniel's voice somehow transmitting without speaking aloud. Subvocal mic, she realized. Military tech. Mr. Crane, the strange acting guard called out. We have a problem. Not now, Phillips. Sir, the fire alarm wasn't random. Security's reporting multiple breach points. Someone's in the building. Victor's composure cracked slightly. Who? Unknown. But they're good. Professional. They've taken down 6 of our men already. Daniel smiled, the expression sharp as a blade. Did you really think I came alone, Crane? That I'd trust my daughter's life to just one plan? It was a bluff, Olivia realized. There was no backup. But Victor didn't know that, and doubt was spreading among his men like a virus. Their formation, previously rock solid, began to waver as they tried to watch all directions at once. You're lying, Victor said, but uncertainty colored his voice. Am I Phillips? How many breach points did security report? Phillips checked his radio. 4, sir. Teams entering from the north stairwell, south elevator shaft, west loading dock, and the executive elevator. The executive elevator goes straight to your office, doesn't it, Victor? Daniel's smile widened. Wonder what they'll find in your private safe. The real books, maybe. The one showing how you've been skimming from your own board to fund this little private army. Impossible. That safe is protected by a Steinhofer 9000 system with biometric locks. Yeah, those are good, unless you have the override codes from the manufacturer, which my friend in the executive elevator happens to have. More doubt, more weapons wavering. Olivia could feel the moment approaching like a wave building far out at sea. Her hand tightened on the hologram control. Even if you're telling the truth, Victor said, rallying, we still have your daughter. Nothing changes that. Everything changes that, Daniel said softly, because now you're fighting on multiple fronts. Your men are divided, your attention is split, and you have no idea how many enemies you're actually facing. An explosion echoed from somewhere above them, the sound muffled but unmistakable. The lights flickered. 2 more of Victor's men immediately headed for the stairs, leaving only 4 plus Victor himself. Sir, we need to move, Phillips urged. If the building's compromised, we're not going anywhere until... Victor began. Daniel moved. It was like watching a force of nature unleashed. One moment he was standing still, the next, he was a blur of motion. His first target was the man closest to Emma, a strike to the throat that dropped him gasping. The second man was turning, bringing his weapon around when Daniel's knife found the gap in his body armor. Olivia hit the button. The holograms appeared instantly perfect duplicates of herself and Daniel that materialized in different positions. The remaining guards, already confused by the speed of Daniel's attack, hesitated for a crucial second, unsure which targets were real. Daniel used that second to grab Emma, rolling with her behind a concrete barrier as gunfire erupted. Bullets sparked off the floor where they'd been, where the holograms still stood. One guard was shooting at hologram Daniel, his bullets passing harmlessly through the projection. The images are fake, Victor screamed, but the damage was done. The confusion had given Daniel the time he needed. Olivia didn't remember drawing the Glock, didn't remember aiming. She just reacted as Daniel had taught her. The gun kicked in her hands, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. Phillips went down, his weapon clattering away. Victor spun toward her, his own pistol rising, but Olivia was already moving, diving behind a parked Mercedes as bullets shattered its windows. Glass rained down on her like deadly snow. "Emma, stay down!" Daniel's voice urgent but controlled. More gunfire, the distinctive sound of his Sig Sauer. Olivia popped up, fired twice more, forcing Victor to take cover. She could see Daniel in her peripheral vision using a car door as a shield while he engaged the remaining guards. Emma was huddled behind the concrete barrier, hands over her ears. One of the guards made the mistake of focusing too long on the hologram, still trying to understand what he was seeing. Daniel's shot took him in the shoulder, spinning him around and down. 2 guards left plus Victor. "Olivia, move left!" Daniel's voice in her earpiece. She rolled left just as bullets destroyed the spot where she'd been. The Mercedes was taking a beating, its body riddled with holes. She needed better cover. There, a support pillar, thick concrete that could stop anything short of a rocket. She sprinted for it, hearing bullets whine past her ear, made it pressed her back against the cold concrete, breathing hard. "Nice shooting," Daniel's voice in her ear. "You're a natural." "I don't feel like a natural," she gasped. "I feel like I'm going to throw up." "That's normal. Means you're still human." Victor's pulling back to the SUV. He's going to try to run. "What about Emma?" "Safe. For now. But we need to end this before his reinforcements arrive." Olivia peered around the pillar. Victor was indeed retreating to the SUV, using his remaining men as cover. One of them was laying down, suppressing fire, while the other tried to flank Daniel's position. She saw what Daniel apparently didn't. The flanking guard had a clear shot at the concrete barrier protecting Emma. Without thinking, Olivia stepped out from cover, her Glock raised. "Hey!" The guard turned toward her, voice, his rifle swinging around. Time slowed. She could see his finger tightening on the trigger, could see the bore of the rifle like a black eye staring at her. She fired first. The guard stumbled backward, his shot going wild, sparking off the ceiling. He dropped to one knee, then fell forward and didn't move. The last guard, seeing his situation was hopeless, threw down his weapon. "I surrender. I'm done." "Smart choice," Daniel said, emerging from cover with his weapon still trained on the man. "Face down, hands behind your head." That left Victor. He stood beside the SUV, his pistol pointed not at them but at the gas tank of a nearby car. "One shot and this whole level goes up. We all die." "You're bluffing," Daniel said. I'm 73 years old, Ross. I've lived my life, built my empire. If I can't have Aurora, if I can't secure my legacy, then what's the point? Maybe taking you all with me is legacy enough." "You'd kill yourself over a weapons system." Olivia couldn't believe what she was hearing. "I'd kill myself over the principle. The weak don't deserve to inherit the earth. If I'm too weak to win here today, then I don't deserve to survive." He was serious, she realized. The fanatic gleam in his eyes wasn't madness, it was conviction. "Daddy?" Emma's small voice broke the standoff. She was peering out from behind the barrier, tears streaming down her face. "Daddy, I'm scared." Daniel's composure cracked. "It's okay, sweetheart. Everything's going to be okay. Just stay where you are." Such touching sentiment, Victor said, but it changes nothing. "Here's what's going to happen. Ms. Grant is going to come with me. We're going to leave and you're not going to follow. In exchange, you get to walk away with your daughter." "No deal," Daniel said immediately. "Then we all die. Simple as that." "You're forgetting something, Victor," Olivia said, stepping forward despite Daniel's warning gesture. "The evidence Daniel collected, the proof of your entire network's crimes. If we die here, it all goes public. A problem for dead men to worry about. Not just dead men. Your legacy, your company, everything you built will be remembered as a criminal enterprise. Your name will be synonymous with treason." That hit home. She could see it in the way his jaw tightened, the way his grip on the pistol shifted. "Moreover," she continued, "I've already transmitted the Aurora specifications to servers in 12 different countries. If I don't enter a code every 6 hours, they automatically publish to every university and government database in the world. Your competitors won't need to steal it. They'll be able to download it for free." It was a lie, but a believable one. Victor's eyes narrowed, calculating. "You wouldn't. That technology in the wrong hands, better in everyone's hands than just yours. She took another step forward. But we can make a deal. You walk away, disappear, and the evidence stays buried. Try to come after any of us again, and everything goes public. Olivia, no, Daniel warned. She ignored him. What's it going to be, Victor, mutual assured destruction or mutual survival? For a long moment, the parking garage was silent except for the distant wail of sirens. More fire alarms were going off now, Victor's entire building apparently in chaos. Finally, Victor lowered his pistol. You've won this round, but this isn't over. The people I work with work for, they don't give up. They'll come for you. Then we'll be ready, Daniel said. Victor laughed, bitter and cold. No one's ever ready for them. They're not like me, constrained by ego or legacy. They're true believers, and true believers are the most dangerous people in the world. He turned toward the SUV, then paused. A word of advice, Ms. Grant. The technology you've created, it's Pandora's box. Once opened, it can't be closed again. You think you're saving the world by keeping it from me, but you're just delaying the inevitable. Someone will weaponize it. Someone always does. Maybe, Olivia said, but not today, and not you. Victor climbed into the SUV and drove away, leaving them standing among the unconscious and wounded, the smell of cordite heavy in the air. The moment he was gone, Daniel ran to Emma, scooping her into his arms. The little girl buried her face in his shoulder, finally allowing herself to sob. I was so scared, Daddy. They said you were dead, but I knew you weren't. I knew you'd come. I'm here, baby. I'm here, and I'm never leaving you again. Olivia turned away, giving them their moment while also keeping watch. The sirens were getting closer. Real police, not corporate security. They needed to leave before questions started getting asked. Daniel, she said softly, we need to go. He nodded, still holding Emma. The tunnel. We can... No, they'll expect that. I have a better idea. She pulled out her burner phone, dialed a number from memory. Margaret. It's Olivia. I need an extraction. Prometheus Industries loading dock 7. And Margaret, bring lawyers, lots of lawyers. She hung up, turned to Daniel. Board member, one of the good ones, remember? She's also former military intelligence. She'll know how to handle this. You trust her? I have to trust someone. And right now she's the only board member not trying to kill me. Daniel stood Emma still in his arms. The girl looked at Olivia with those two wise eyes. Are you the reason Daddy had to hide? No, sweetheart, Daniel said quickly. Actually, yes, Olivia said, meeting the child's gaze. But I'm also the reason he doesn't have to hide anymore. Emma studied her for a moment, then nodded solemnly. Okay. Are you coming with us? If that's okay with you. Daddy needs someone to watch his back. He thinks he's Superman, but he's not. Hey, Daniel protested, but he was smiling. She's right, Olivia said. Even Superman had the Justice League. They made their way to the loading dock, Daniel carrying Emma, while Olivia covered their rear. The building was in full evacuation mode now, alarms blaring, people streaming out. Perfect cover for their escape. Margaret Chen was waiting with a convoy of black SUVs and enough lawyers to choke a courthouse. She took one look at them, bloodied, battered, carrying a child, and didn't ask a single question. Get in, she said simply. We'll sort out the rest later. As they drove away from Prometheus Industries, Olivia looked back at the building smoke now visible from several windows. Whatever Daniel's phantom allies had done, or whatever automated systems he'd triggered to sell his bluff, had been thorough. It's not over, Daniel said quietly, following her gaze. No, she agreed. But we won this round. What happens now? Emma asked from between them. Olivia and Daniel exchanged glances over her head. What did happen now? They'd survived, saved. Emma kept the technology from falling into the wrong hands, but Victor was right about one thing: the people behind him wouldn't give up. Now, Olivia said, making a decision, we disappear for a while. All of us. Together. Where will we go? Emma asked. Somewhere safe, Daniel said. Somewhere they won't think to look. I know a place, Olivia said. A cabin in Montana, completely off the grid. Bought it under a shell company years ago, paid cash. Not even my board knows about it. Montana, Emma said thoughtfully. Do they have horses? They do. And snow. Lots of snow. Okay. She leaned against her father, exhaustion finally catching up with her. Can Olivia come with us, Daddy? I like her. She's brave. Daniel looked at Olivia, something warm in his eyes. Yeah, sweetheart. She can come with us. As Manhattan disappeared behind them, Olivia felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Hope. They were walking away from everything she'd built, everything she'd worked for. Her company would survive. Margaret would see to that. But Olivia Grant, CEO of Grantech, was effectively dead. But maybe that was okay. Maybe it was time for a different life. One where success wasn't measured in stock prices and board approvals. One where she could work on her technology without corporate interference, where she could help raise a remarkable little girl who'd already seen too much, where she could learn what it meant to be part of something more important than any company. The cabin has a workshop, she told Daniel. Fully equipped satellite internet through untraceable relays. We could continue working on Aurora, but the right way. Defensive only, open source eventually. Make it impossible for anyone to monopolize. That's dangerous. The moment we surface with that technology, then we don't surface. We release it anonymously, simultaneously to every government and peace organization in the world. Level the playing field completely. Mutually assured defense instead of destruction, Daniel mused. It could work. It will work, but first we need time. Time to perfect it. Time to set up the distribution network. Time to heal. Daniel interrupted gently, glancing at his daughter who had fallen asleep against his shoulder. That too. Margaret's voice came from the driver's seat. I've arranged clean papers for all of you. New identities completely backstopped. The company owes me some favors from my intelligence days. You'll be ghosts until you choose not to be. What about Grantech? Olivia asked. I'll handle it. Emergency board meeting tonight. Harrison Blackwood and the other compromised members are about to discover that their golden parachutes have very large holes in them. Securities fraud, corporate espionage, conspiracy. They'll be too busy trying to stay out of prison to worry about you. And Victor? Victor Crane is about to have his own problems. Turns out the IRS has been very interested in Prometheus Industries' accounting practices. They just needed someone to point them in the right direction. Olivia smiled. Margaret Chen was proving to be a more valuable ally than she'd ever imagined. They switched vehicles twice more, standard counter-surveillance protocol, according to Daniel. By the time they reached the private airfield in New Jersey, dawn was breaking, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. The plane was small but comfortable, chartered under one of Margaret's shell companies. As they boarded, Emma woke up blinking in the early morning light. Are we going on an adventure? She asked. The biggest adventure, Daniel told her. Will there be bad guys? Not where we're going? Good. I'm tired of bad guys. She looked at Olivia. Are you my mom now? The question caught Olivia completely off guard. She looked at Daniel, who seemed equally stunned. That's... Olivia stammered. My real mom died when I was little, Emma continued matter-of-factly. Daddy said she was brave and smart and beautiful. You're all those things, so maybe you could be my new mom. Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. This little girl, after everything she'd been through, was offering her a gift greater than any technology or corporate success. I would be honored, she said softly. Emma smiled, the first real smile Olivia had seen from her. Good. Daddy needs someone to take care of him. He forgets to eat when he's worried. I do not... Daniel started. You do too, Aunt Sarah told me. Speaking of your aunt, Daniel said, clearly desperate to change the subject. We need to call her, let her know you're safe. Already handled, Margaret said, appearing in the plane's doorway. She's been relocated temporarily just as a precaution. She knows Emma is safe with you. You've thought of everything, Olivia said gratefully. That's my job, or was. I submitted my resignation to the board an hour ago. Figured you could use someone with my skill set more than Grantech could. You're coming with us. If you'll have me, someone needs to manage the logistics while you save the world. Margaret smiled. Plus, I've always wanted to see Montana. As the plane lifted off, Olivia looked out the window at the city falling away below. Somewhere down there, Victor Crane was discovering that his empire was crumbling. Harrison Blackwood was probably getting a visit from federal agents. The entire conspiracy was unraveling thread by thread, but that was the past now. The future lay ahead in a cabin in Montana where she could work without corporate interference, where Daniel could finally stop running, where Emma could have something approaching a normal childhood. "Hey," Daniel said softly, his hand finding hers. "You okay?" "Yeah," she said, surprised to find it was true. "For the first time in a long time, I'm actually okay." "This isn't the life you planned." "No," she agreed. "It's better." Emma had crawled into her lap at some point, falling asleep again with the resilience only children possessed. Daniel's arm was around them both, protective and warm. Margaret was up front with the pilot, already working on their new identities, creating people who had never existed but would seem absolutely real to anyone who looked. The sun climbed higher, bathing the cabin in golden light. Below them, America stretched out in all its vast possibility. Somewhere out there were more Victor Cranes, more conspiracies, more threats to peace and freedom. But there were also more people like Margaret willing to sacrifice comfort for conviction. More people like Daniel who would stand up to evil no matter the cost. And maybe, just maybe, there were more people like herself who could create tools for peace instead of war. The flight to Montana would take 4 hours. 4 hours to leave Olivia Grant CEO behind and become someone new, someone better. Someone who measured success not in stock prices, but in the laughter of a child, the trust of a partner, the knowledge that she was working towards something greater than profit. "Daniel," she said quietly, not wanting to wake Emma, "what you did back there calling their bluff about having backup, that was brilliant." "Who says it was a bluff?" He smiled mysteriously. "You don't survive in my world without having contingency plans." "But you said..." "I said I came alone to save Emma. That doesn't mean I didn't have insurance." He pulled out his phone, showed her a series of messages. "Martinez, Washington, Chen, my old unit. They were never in danger from Victor. They were my backup running cyber operations from 3 different states. The explosions, the system intrusions, the chaos, all them." "You clever bastard." "Language," he warned, glancing at Emma. "You clever genius," she corrected. "Better." He was quiet for a moment. "Olivia, what you did back there, standing up to Victor, protecting Emma, you didn't have to do any of that." "Yes, I did. The moment they took her, the moment they tried to use an innocent child as leverage, it became my fight too." She stroked Emma's hair gently. "Besides, someone once told me that in a firefight, thinking gets you killed. Reacting keeps you alive." "Smart man." "The smartest." She leaned into him, feeling his warmth, his strength. "So, Mr. Ross, or whatever our new names, will be ready to disappear. With you, ready for anything." Outside the window, the landscape was changing, cities giving way to farmland to forests and mountains. Somewhere ahead was their new life, hidden and safe, at least for now. They would work on Aurora, perfect it, prepare it. And when the time was right, they would release it to the world, ensuring that no one could ever again threaten a child to steal power. But that was tomorrow's fight. Today they had won. They were together, they were alive, and they were free. As the plane carried them toward their new beginning, Olivia closed her eyes and let herself believe just for a moment that happy endings were possible. Even for a CEO, a ghost, and a little girl who'd already seen too much of the world's darkness. The war wasn't over. It might never be truly over. But this battle, this crucial fight for their survival and freedom, was won. And in the grand scheme of things, in the endless struggle between those who would control and those who would be free, sometimes one victory was enough to change everything. Emma stirred in her sleep, murmuring something about horses and snow. Daniel tightened his arm around them both. Margaret's fingers flew over her laptop keyboard, building their new lives keystroke by keystroke. And Olivia Grant, who had spent her entire adult life fighting alone, finally understood what it meant to be part of a team. Not a corporate team built on profit and ambition, but a real team built on trust, sacrifice, and the mutual determination to protect what mattered most. The plane flew on through the morning sky, carrying them away from everything they'd known and toward everything they might become. Behind them, New York continued its relentless pace, unaware that one of its most powerful executives had just vanished, that a conspiracy reaching to the highest levels of corporate power had been exposed, that a new kind of warfare had been prevented by the unlikely alliance of a CEO and a janitor. But New York would survive as it always did. Grant Tech would survive under Margaret's emergency leadership and the eventual guidance of the clean board members. Even Prometheus Industries would probably survive in some form, though significantly weakened and under federal investigation. The only things that wouldn't survive were the old versions of themselves. Olivia Grant, the isolated CEO. Daniel Ross, the hidden warrior. Emma Ross, the girl without a father. Those people were gone now, replaced by something new, something stronger. A family forged in fire and bulletproof glass, heading toward a future they would write themselves. The Montana cabin emerged from the morning mist like something out of a fairy tale. Its log walls weathered to a warm golden brown, and smoke curling from a stone chimney that must have been built a century ago. Emma pressed her nose against the car window, her breath fogging the glass as she took in the vast expanse of wilderness that surrounded what would become their new home. They'd driven for 3 hours from the private airstrip, Margaret taking a deliberately convoluted route that included 2 vehicle changes and enough doublebacks to lose even the most determined surveillance. "It's perfect," Emma breathed, her voice filled with the wonder that only children could muster after everything she'd been through. "Daddy, look, there's a barn. Do you think there are horses?" "We'll have to check it," Daniel said, but his eyes were scanning the property with professional assessment, cataloging sight lines, defensive positions, potential vulnerabilities. Old habits died hard, and some habits kept you alive. Olivia understood his caution. The past week since their escape from Prometheus Industries had been a whirlwind of careful movements and constant vigilance. They'd stayed in 3 different safe houses, never more than 2 nights in any location, while Margaret worked her magic with their new identities. Now they were the Ross family. David and Rachel Ross, their daughter Emily and Rachel's sister Margaret Chen, who'd kept her first name to avoid confusion. Their backstories were impeccable, their paper trails stretching back years, complete with employment histories, tax returns, and even social media profiles populated with carefully curated photographs that Margaret's CIA contacts had doctored to perfection. "The perimeter sensors are already active," Margaret said from the driver's seat, consulting her tablet. "Motion detectors, infrared cameras, the works. Anyone comes within a half-mile of this place will know about it." "But not too sensitive," Olivia added. "We don't want false alarms every time a deer walks by." "Already calibrated. The system can differentiate between wildlife and humans based on heat signatures and movement patterns." Margaret pulled up to the cabin's wraparound porch. The previous owners were apparently as paranoid as we are. They were preppers convinced society was about to collapse. Their paranoia is our gain. The cabin was larger than it appeared from the outside, with 2 stories plus a finished basement that Olivia had already mentally designated as her laboratory. The main floor opened into a great room dominated by a massive stone fireplace, the walls adorned with windows that provided panoramic views of the surrounding mountains, while maintaining tactical advantage. Anyone approaching would be visible long before they reached the house. Emma ran from room to room, her earlier trauma seemingly forgotten in the excitement of exploration. She claimed the bedroom with the window seat overlooking the meadow, declaring it perfect for reading and watching for wildlife. Her resilience amazed Olivia, though she'd noticed the child still startled at sudden noises and stayed close to Daniel whenever strangers were near. "The equipment will arrive tomorrow," Margaret said, checking her lists with characteristic efficiency. "Everything you specified for the lab, plus supplies, for at least 6 months. After that, we'll establish a regular delivery schedule through intermediaries. Nothing that can be traced back to us." "What about communications?" Daniel asked, testing the locks on each window with methodical precision. "Satellite internet through a series of encrypted relays. It'll be slower than what you're used to, but completely secure. I've also set up a dark web protocol for emergency communications with my remaining contacts." Olivia found herself in what would become her workspace, a room that had probably been a study with built-in bookshelves and a view of the mountains that took her breath away. So different from her corner office at Grant Tech with its view of Manhattan's steel and glass. That life felt like a dream now, or perhaps this was the dream. It was hard to tell sometimes. You okay? Daniel appeared in the doorway, moving with that silent grace that still unnerved her sometimes. Just thinking about how much has changed. 2 weeks ago, I was worried about quarterly earnings and board meetings. Now I'm in hiding with a former special ops soldier and his daughter planning to secretly save the world. Having second thoughts. She turned to face him fully. In the soft mountain light, she could see the man beneath the warrior, the father who'd given up everything to protect his child, the protector who'd risked his carefully constructed cover to save a stranger. No second thoughts, just adjustment. It gets easier, he said, moving closer. The new identity, I mean. After a while, you forget who you used to be. Is that what happened to you? You forgot who you were before. His expression darkened slightly. I tried to forget. Some things are better left buried, but then they took Emma, and suddenly everything I'd tried to bury came roaring back. Your training saved us. My training got us into this mess. If I'd stayed truly hidden, if I hadn't been watching you, then Victor would have the Helios data and Aurora, and I'd either be dead or working for him under duress. She reached out, touched his arm. You saved me, Daniel, in more ways than one. The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility. But then Emma's voice echoed from somewhere in the house, exclaiming over some new discovery, and the spell broke. We should do a full security sweep, Daniel said, stepping back. Check all the defensive positions, make sure the sight lines are clear. Of course, Olivia agreed, recognizing his need to retreat into the familiar comfort of tactical planning. They'd been dancing around this attraction since the plane ride, neither quite ready to acknowledge what was building between them. There was too much at stake, too much still uncertain. The rest of the day was spent settling in, establishing routines that would become their new normal. Margaret set up her command center in a corner of the great room, her multiple laptops and monitors creating a high-tech nest from which she could monitor news feeds, financial markets, and intelligence chatter. Daniel walked the perimeter with Emma, teaching her about the local wildlife and secretly assessing every possible approach route. Olivia began organizing her laboratory space, making lists of additional equipment she'd need to continue her work on Aurora. That evening, they sat around the fireplace, eating a simple dinner that Margaret had prepared. She'd revealed yet another hidden talent as an excellent cook. Emma was curled against her father's side, fighting sleep, but determined to stay up with the adults. Tell me about Aurora, Emma said to Olivia. Daddy says you're making something that will stop wars. Olivia considered how to explain quantum-entangled defense systems to a 9-year-old. Imagine if every weapon in the world had an off switch, and I could build a remote control that could flip all those switches at once, so nobody could hurt anybody. That's the idea. But what if bad people get the remote out of the mouths of babes? That's why we have to be very careful about how we build it and who gets to use it. Maybe everybody should have one, Emma said thoughtfully. Then if someone tries to be mean, everyone else can turn their weapons off. Olivia and Daniel exchanged glances over her head. The child had just articulated the exact distribution strategy they'd been discussing mutual defense through universal access. You're brilliant, you know that, Olivia told her. Emma smiled sleepily. Daddy says I get it from my mom. My first mom, I mean. She was a scientist too. Daniel's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. He'd never mentioned Emma's mother beyond confirming she was deceased. She must have been very special, Olivia said carefully. She was, Daniel said quietly. But that's a story for another day. Time for bed, little one. Emma protested, but eventually allowed herself to be carried upstairs. Olivia watched them go, father and daughter, noting how Emma's arms wrapped trustingly around Daniel's neck, how his entire posture softened when he held her. Whatever darkness lurked in his past, his love for his daughter was pure and uncomplicated. Margaret closed her laptop and stretched. I'm turning in too. First watch is yours, David, if you're keeping to military protocol. Old habits, Daniel confirmed, returning from tucking Emma in. I'll take midnight to 4. You take 4 to 8. Works for me. Margaret gathered her equipment. Though honestly, if anyone finds us this quickly, we've got bigger problems than sleep schedules. When she was gone, Daniel and Olivia were left alone in the great room, the fire casting dancing shadows on the walls. The silence wasn't uncomfortable exactly, but it was weighted with things unsaid. You want to know about Emma's mother, Daniel said, eventually not making it a question. Only if you want to tell me. He stared into the fire for a long moment. Her name was Sarah. Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation to Margaret. We met in Afghanistan. She was there with Doctors Without Borders. I was supposed to be providing security for her convoy, but insurgents hit us hard. We spent 3 days hiding in a cave waiting for extraction. 3 days of thinking we were going to die. But you didn't. No, we survived. And afterward, well, intense situations create intense bonds. We got married 2 months later, right before my tour ended. Emma came a year after that. His voice grew softer. Sarah went back to Afghanistan when Emma was 6 months old. Said she had to, that there were children there who needed her help. Her convoy hit an IED on her 3rd day back. Daniel, I'm so sorry. I left the military after that. Couldn't risk Emma losing both parents. Took private contracts, made good money, thought I was being smart and safe. Then the mission in Afghanistan went wrong. My unit was betrayed and I had to disappear. Had to let Emma think I was dead too. That must have been torture. Every single day. He turned from the fire to look at her. But at least she was safe, or I thought she was. If I'd known Victor's people were watching her. You couldn't have known. And you saved her the moment she was in danger. We saved her, he corrected. I couldn't have done it without you. The firelight played across his features, highlighting the scar on his jaw, the lines around his eyes that spoke of too many battles fought. Olivia found herself moving closer without conscious thought. Daniel, she began, then stopped, unsure how to articulate the tangle of emotions she was feeling. I know, he said softly. I feel it too, but Emma needs stability, and we need to focus on Aurora. And there are a dozen other perfectly logical reasons why this is a bad idea. Exactly. They stood there inches apart, the space between them humming with possibility and restraint in equal measure. A sound from outside broke the moment, something moving through the underbrush. Daniel was instantly alert, his hand going to the weapon he'd placed strategically by the fireplace. But then they heard it, the distinctive bugle of an elk, followed by answering calls from across the valley. Just the locals, Olivia said, her heart rate slowly returning to normal. Going to take some getting used to, Daniel admitted. In the city, every sound meant potential threat. Here, most of them are just life. Maybe that's not a bad thing. Learning to distinguish between real threats and just life. He looked at her, understanding the metaphor. Maybe not. They spent the rest of the evening in comfortable companionship, Daniel teaching her basic defensive moves while she explained the theoretical framework behind Aurora's quantum entanglement protocols. It was an odd form of courtship, if that's what this was. Trading knowledge of violence and protection of science and survival. By the time midnight came and Daniel officially began his watch, Olivia was exhausted but exhilarated. This new life was nothing like what she'd planned, but perhaps that was the point. Plans could be predicted, countered, defeated. But this improvised existence, balanced between hiding and preparing to change the world, this was something their enemies couldn't have anticipated. She climbed the stairs to her room, pausing at Emma's door. The child was sleeping peacefully, one arm wrapped around a stuffed bear that Daniel had grabbed during their escape. In sleep, she looked even younger than her 9 years, innocent and vulnerable. This was what they were fighting for, Olivia realized. Not abstract concepts of national security or technological superiority, but this one child's right to sleep safely, to grow up in a world where weapons could be neutralized before they could destroy. Her own room was simple but comfortable, with a view of the mountains that would probably never get old. As she prepared for bed, her phone, the secure one Margaret had provided, buzzed with an encrypted message. It was from Douglas Porter, one of the 2 board members Daniel had identified as trustworthy. Grant Tech board in chaos. Blackwood arrested by FBI this morning. Richardson turned state's evidence. Walsh disappeared. Company stock down 30% but stabilizing under emergency leadership. Your vision for Aurora lives on through the legitimate projects. Stay safe. The work continues. So the corporate world she'd left behind was adapting, surviving, even potentially thriving without her. It should have stung, but instead she felt only relief. That world with its hostile takeovers and boardroom betrayals felt like a prison now. This cabin, for all its isolation and danger, felt like freedom. Another message came through, this one from Margaret downstairs. Picking up chatter about Prometheus, major restructuring happening, Victor Crane's location unknown, several European defense contractors sniffing around the remains. We need to accelerate Aurora timeline. Olivia typed back, understood. We begin tomorrow. She lay in bed listening to the unfamiliar sounds of wilderness wind through pines, the distant howl of something that might have been a wolf, the creak of logs settling. Somewhere in the house, Daniel was keeping watch, protecting them all, as he'd done since the moment he'd whispered, "Don't run," on that marble floor. Sleep came slowly, her mind racing with calculations and possibilities. Aurora was more than just code and hardware. It was a paradigm shift in how humanity approached conflict. Instead of ever bigger weapons, ever more destructive capabilities, it offered the possibility of negation, of rendering violence obsolete through technology. But Emma's innocent question echoed, what if bad people got the remote? The answer, she was beginning to understand, lay not in keeping Aurora secret, but in making it universal. If everyone had the capability to neutralize weapons, then no one could dominate through force alone. It would require cooperation, negotiation, actual diplomacy, instead of the threat of violence. She must have dozed off, because suddenly she was awake, heart pounding, unsure what had woken her. Then she heard footsteps in the hall, careful, but not quite silent enough. Her hand found the Glock on the nightstand, muscle memory from Daniel's training taking over. She slipped out of bed, moved to the door, listened. Olivia. Daniel's voice soft and concerned. You okay? The sensors picked up elevated heart rate from your room. She opened the door, found him standing there looking worried. The sensors can detect that. Margaret's additions, she's thorough. He looked past her, scanning the room automatically. Bad dreams. Something like that. Just processing everything I think. It takes time. The adrenaline from what we went through, it doesn't just disappear. Your body remembers danger even when your mind knows you're safe. Speaking from experience. Too much experience. He hesitated, then added, sometimes it helps to talk about it, or just not be alone. There was invitation in his voice, carefully offered, easily declined. Olivia considered for a moment, then stepped back from the doorway. Want some coffee? I don't think I'm getting back to sleep anyway. They went downstairs together, moving quietly to avoid waking Emma or Margaret. Olivia made coffee while Daniel maintained his watch, checking the security monitors with practiced efficiency. All quiet, he reported, just the elk herd moving through the lower meadow. They sat on the couch, maintaining careful distance but feeling the pull between them like gravity. The fire had died to embers, casting the room in soft red light. Tell me about the real Daniel Ross, Olivia said. Not the soldier, not the ghost, but the man Emma calls Daddy. He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I don't know if that person exists anymore. I've been playing roles for so long, soldier, contractor, dead man, janitor. I'm not sure what's underneath. I saw him in that parking garage, when you held Emma, when you looked at her. That wasn't a role. No, he agreed. That was the only real thing left. Being her father, everything else. He shrugged. Maybe that's enough. Maybe we build from there. He turned to look at her fully. We're in this together now, for better or worse. Aurora keeping Emma safe, staying hidden. None of it works unless we trust each other completely. I trust you, he said simply. You stood with us against Victor when you could have run. You gave up everything to protect a child you'd never met. How could I not trust that? But trust and other things are different. You deserve better than a damaged soldier with more enemies than friends. I'm a corporate refugee with my own set of enemies and a technology that could either save or doom the world. I don't think better is really on the table. That drew a small smile from him. When you put it like that, besides, she continued, Emma already asked if I was going to be her new mom. Kids see things clearly sometimes. She said that to you too. She asked me the same thing yesterday. What did you tell her? That it was complicated. Is it though? Olivia set down her coffee, turned to face him fully. We're already living together, raising her together, working together to save the world. How much more complicated could it get? Olivia, I'm not asking for declarations or promises, she interrupted. I'm just saying, maybe we stop fighting this so hard. See what happens naturally. He reached out, touched her face gently, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. You know I'm not good at natural. Everything in my life has been tactical, planned, strategic. Then consider this a new mission parameter, Operation Normal Life. Normal, he repeated, almost tasting the word. With you developing world-changing defense technology in the basement while I teach our daughter Emma how to track elk and spot surveillance drones. Our daughter, Olivia caught the slip. Daniel's hand dropped. I didn't mean, I liked it. She caught his hand, held it. Our daughter, our family, our completely abnormal normal life. This time when they moved together, there was no explosion to interrupt them. No crisis to manage. Just two people finding each other in the wilderness, building something new from the ashes of their old lives. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, as if they were both afraid the other might disappear. Then Daniel's arms went around her, pulling her closer, and Olivia felt something inside her that had been frozen since her divorce finally began to thaw. When they separated, both breathing hard, Daniel's eyes were dark with emotion. This changes everything. Everything's already changed, we're just catching up. A sound from upstairs made them both freeze, footsteps, small ones, padding toward the stairs. Daddy, Emma's voice sleepy and uncertain. Daniel was up, instantly moving toward the stairs. I'm here, sweetheart, just checking the house. Go back to bed. Can't sleep, the house sounds different. She appeared at the top of the stairs, hair mussed, dragging her stuffed bear. Her eyes found Olivia on the couch and brightened slightly. Olivia's up too. Can we have hot chocolate? Daniel glanced at Olivia, who nodded. Sure, baby, come on down. Emma patted down, climbed onto the couch between them, with the natural assumption that she belonged there. Are you guys having a meeting about the bad people? No meetings tonight, Olivia assured her. Just couldn't sleep. Me neither. I keep thinking about home. Not home, but Aunt Sarah's house. Do you think she misses me? I'm sure she does, Daniel said, pulling his daughter close. But she knows you're safe. That's what matters most. Can I call her sometime? Daniel and Olivia exchanged glances over her head. Contact with the outside world was dangerous, but complete isolation was cruel for a child. We'll set up a secure line, Margaret's voice came from the kitchen doorway. None of them had heard her approach. Video calls encrypted and routed through enough proxies to make the NSA dizzy. Give me 2 days. You're supposed to be sleeping, Daniel said. Hard to sleep when the whole emotional temperature of the house shifts, Margaret said dryly, starting the hot chocolate. The walls aren't that thick. Olivia felt herself blushing, but Emma just snuggled deeper between them, oblivious to the adult undercurrents. Is this our family now? Emma asked. The 4 of us. Yes, Daniel said without hesitation this time. This is our family. Good, Emma said decisively. I like our family. They sat together in the ember light, drinking hot chocolate and watching the fire die to ashes, a strange little family forged by circumstance and choice in equal measure. Outside, the Montana wilderness stretched endless and dark, full of unknown threats and possibilities. But inside, in this moment, they were safe, they were together, and they were beginning to believe that might be enough. Margaret eventually herded Emma back to bed, giving Daniel and Olivia a knowing look before disappearing upstairs herself. They were alone again, but the moment had shifted from romantic possibility to something deeper, a recognition of what they were building together. We should establish protocols, Daniel said, falling back on military terminology. For security, for Emma's education, for your work on Aurora. Tomorrow, Olivia said. Tonight, let's just be. They spent the rest of Daniel's watch together, not talking much, just existing in the same space with this new understanding between them. When 4 a.m. came and Margaret appeared to take over, they walked upstairs together, pausing at the hallway between their rooms. Good night, Olivia, Daniel said softly. Good night, Daniel. They went to their separate rooms, but everything had changed. The trajectory of their lives, already radically altered, had shifted again. They were no longer just allies in hiding, they were becoming something more, something that might actually resemble the family Emma had already decided they were. As Olivia finally drifted off to sleep, she thought about the quantum entanglement principles at the heart of Aurora. Two particles once connected remained linked regardless of distance or obstacle. Perhaps that's what was happening here, lives that had become entangled at a fundamental level, unable to be separated without destroying the whole. The next morning brought the arrival of her laboratory equipment delivered by drivers who asked no questions and forgot the address the moment they left. Olivia threw herself into the work, setting up clean rooms and testing environments, while Emma watched with fascination and Daniel helped with the heavy lifting. "What does this do?" Emma asked, pointing to a quantum processor that had cost more than most people's houses. "It helps computers think in multiple dimensions at once," Olivia explained, enjoying the child's curiosity. "Like imagining different stories at the same time." Exactly like that. As the lab took shape, Olivia felt the familiar excitement of creation beginning to build. Aurora had been theoretical before constrained by corporate bureaucracy and board oversight. Here, in this cabin in the wilderness, with her unusual family as her only review committee, she could push boundaries she'd never dared approach before. Daniel worked beside her, learning the technology with the same focused intensity he'd once applied to weapons systems. Margaret coordinated with her network, gathering intelligence on who was searching for them and how close they might be getting. Emma divided her time between watching Olivia work and exploring the property with her father, learning woodcraft and wildlife observation with equal enthusiasm. By evening, the lab was operational enough for Olivia to begin the real work. She stood in her new domain, surrounded by bleeding-edge technology, hidden in a cabin that looked like it belonged to the last century, and felt a surge of possibility. "Ready to change the world?" Daniel asked from the doorway. "Ready to try," she replied. He crossed to her, pulled her into his arms with a confidence that hadn't been there the night before. "We're going to do this, all of it. Aurora keeping Emma safe, building something real here." "You sound certain." "I am. For the first time in years, I'm certain." He kissed her deeper this time, with promise rather than question. When they separated, Olivia was breathless. "If you keep doing that, I'm not going to get any work done. Then I'll exercise restraint during working hours. And after working hours." His smile was answer enough. They were interrupted by Emma calling from upstairs, something about a deer in the yard, and the moment dissolved into the domestic chaos that was already becoming their new normal. But as Olivia watched Daniel scoop up his daughter to carry her to the window, as she saw Margaret smile at them with genuine warmth, she knew they were building something stronger than any corporate empire or military unit. They were building a home, and from that foundation they would build a new world, one where weapons could be silenced, where children could sleep safely, where families forged in crisis could find peace and purpose. The work would be hard. The danger was far from over. Victor Crane was still out there, along with the shadowy forces behind him. The technology she was developing could still be perverted into a tool of oppression rather than liberation. But tonight, in this cabin in Montana, with her quantum processors humming in the basement and her chosen family gathered around the dinner table, Olivia allowed herself to believe they would succeed. They had to. The alternative, a world where violence remained the ultimate authority, was no longer acceptable. As Emma regaled them with stories of the deer she'd seen, as Daniel's hand found hers under the table, as Margaret plotted their next moves with strategic brilliance, Olivia felt the pieces of her new life clicking into place with the same elegant precision as Aurora's code. The first sign of trouble came 3 weeks later, on a morning when frost painted the meadow silver, and Emma was practicing her tracking skills with Daniel in the woods behind the cabin. Olivia was deep in her work, running her 14th simulation of Aurora's defensive matrix, when Margaret's voice cut through her concentration with an urgency that made her blood run cold. "We have a problem. Multiple vehicles approaching from the south. They'll be here in 15 minutes. Olivia's hands froze over the keyboard. The simulation continued running on the screen, quantum calculations she'd spent weeks perfecting, but suddenly none of it mattered. How many? 3 SUVs, tactical formation. They know exactly where they're going. Margaret was already at her command station, fingers flying across multiple keyboards. "Daniel needs to get Emma back here now." Olivia grabbed the encrypted radio they used for emergencies. Daniel code red. Bring her home. His response was immediate professional despite the fear she could hear underneath. Copy. 3 minutes out. Those 3 minutes stretched like hours. Olivia saved her work, initiated the emergency protocols that would wipe the servers if anyone tried to access them without the proper codes. Everything they'd built, everything they'd discovered about Aurora's capabilities could be destroyed in seconds if necessary. The thought made her sick, but not as sick as the thought of it falling into the wrong hands. Margaret was pulling up feeds from their perimeter cameras, her face grim. They're not trying to hide. This is a show of force. Victor. Unknown. The vehicles are unmarked, but the formation is military. Could be government, could be private military. Contractors could be... She stopped, leaning closer to one of the screens. Wait. The lead vehicle just slowed down. They're stopping at the gate. The gate was a mile from the cabin, their first line of defense. Anyone stopping there was either being cautious or sending a message. Daniel burst through the door with Emma in his arms. The child was pale but quiet, understanding from her father's body language that this was serious. He set her down gently, his hand going immediately to the weapon at his hip. Emma, sweetheart, remember what we practiced, he said softly. She nodded, her young face set with determination. Safe room in the basement. Don't come out until you or Olivia or Aunt Margaret says the special password. That's my brave girl. Go now. Emma hugged him quickly, then Olivia, then ran for the basement stairs. The safe room down there was reinforced concrete with its own air supply and enough provisions for a week. It was also where Olivia had hidden the physical backups of Aurora's code encrypted on drives that would self-destruct if tampered with. They're sending someone on foot, Margaret reported. Single individual hands visible. This isn't an assault, it's a negotiation. Daniel moved to the window using binoculars to study the approaching figure. His body went rigid. That's impossible. Who is it? Olivia demanded. Marcus Washington, my former unit commander. He's supposed to be dead. The man approaching their cabin was tall, built like a linebacker, despite being in his 50s with silver-streaked hair and a face that had seen too many battlefields. He stopped 50 yards from the house, hands raised, and called out in a voice that carried clearly through the morning air. Shepard, I know you're in there. We need to talk. I'm alone unarmed, and I've got information you need to hear. Daniel looked at Olivia and Margaret, conflict clear in his eyes. It could be a trap. Or it could be exactly what he says, Margaret countered. The fact that he used your call sign that he's approaching openly. He was the best commander I ever served under, Daniel said quietly. If anyone could have survived what happened in Afghanistan, it would be him. But if he's here, if he found us, then others can too, Olivia finished. We need to know what he knows. Daniel checked his weapon, then moved toward the door. Cover me. If this goes bad. It won't, Olivia said with more confidence than she felt. Be careful. Daniel stepped onto the porch. His weapon lowered but ready. Marcus, you're looking pretty good for a dead man. Washington's laugh was dry as desert sand. Could say the same about you, Shepard. Can we talk like civilized people, or are you going to make me stand out here like a door-to-door salesman? That depends. You working for anyone I should know about? I'm working for the same people I've always worked for, the ones trying to keep this country from tearing itself apart. Right now, that means making sure you and Dr. Grant stay alive long enough to finish what you're building. Daniel tensed. How do you... Because I've been running interference for you for 3 weeks, Washington interrupted. You think Victor Crane just gave up? Think his backers just walked away. I've got 2 teams in New York and 1 in D.C., making sure every lead that points to Montana gets mysteriously misdirected. Why? Because Aurora is bigger than any of us, and because some of us still believe in doing the right thing. Washington lowered his hand slowly. Can I come in? We've got maybe an hour before my absence gets noticed, and there's a lot you need to know. Daniel looked back at Olivia, who nodded. This was a risk, but they needed allies. And if Washington was telling the truth... Come in, Daniel said. Slowly. And Marcus? If this is a betrayal, then you'll kill me before I take 3 steps. I trained you. Remember, I know exactly what you're capable of. Washington entered the cabin with the careful movements of someone who knew he was in the crosshairs. His eyes took in everything: Margaret at her station, Olivia by the laboratory door, the defensive positions Daniel had naturally created. "Dr. Grant," he said with genuine respect, "your work on Aurora is extraordinary. If we can implement it correctly, it could end the cycle of violence that's been humanity's curse since we picked up the first rock." "You've seen my work." Olivia tried to keep the alarm out of her voice. "Not directly, but the energy signatures from your quantum processors are distinctive if you know what to look for. Don't worry, I've been feeding false data to anyone else who might notice." "Start talking," Daniel commanded. "Everything. From the beginning." Washington settled into a chair, his movements careful and deliberate. "The mission in Afghanistan wasn't just compromised, it was a setup from the start. Someone wanted our unit eliminated because we were getting too close to the truth about Prometheus Industries' weapons smuggling operation. They were selling American military tech to anyone with deep enough pockets using Victor Crane's network to launder the money." "We figured that much," Daniel said. "What we don't know is who's really behind it." "A group that calls itself the Prometheus Syndicate. Crane was middle management, just like he said. The real power players are a coalition of defense contractors, intelligence officials from multiple countries, and banking executives who've decided that governments are obsolete. They want to create a corporate shadow state, one that operates above national laws." "And Aurora threatens that," Olivia said. "Aurora destroys that. If defensive technology makes offensive weapons obsolete, their entire power structure collapses. They can't rule through force if force can be neutralized. So why help us?" Daniel's weapon was still in his hand, though lowered. "What's your angle?" Washington's expression hardened. "Because I've got a daughter too. She's 15, wants to join the Marines like her old man. I've spent my whole life fighting wars, and I don't want her to inherit a world where the only law is who has the biggest gun." "How did you survive Afghanistan?" Daniel asked. "Same way you did. I saw the betrayal coming and got out. Been underground ever since, working with a group of former military and intelligence personnel who figured out what the syndicate is planning. We call ourselves the Lighthouse Project. Our goal is to illuminate the darkness, expose the corruption, and support people like you who are building alternatives to their violence-based world order." Margaret had been typing throughout the conversation, cross-referencing everything Washington was saying. "The Lighthouse Project. I've heard whispers, but nothing concrete." "That's by design. We operate in cells, no one knows everyone involved. But I can tell you we have people in positions throughout the government and military who are ready to move when the time is right." "When will that be?" Olivia asked. "When Aurora is ready. When you can demonstrate that defensive technology can truly neutralize offensive weapons, we'll have the leverage to expose the syndicate and offer the world a better option." "How long do we have?" Daniel's tactical mind was already working through scenarios. 6 weeks? Maybe 8 if we're lucky. The syndicate is consolidating power, absorbing smaller defense contractors, positioning their people in key government roles. Once they reach critical mass, stopping them becomes exponentially harder. "Aurora won't be ready in 6 weeks, Olivia said. "The quantum entanglement protocols alone need another 3 months of testing. Then we need to buy you time." Washington pulled out an encrypted phone, showed them a map with multiple marked locations. "These are syndicate facilities we've identified. If we hit them strategically, make them think their security is compromised, they'll pull back to reassess. Could give you an extra month, maybe 2. "That's declaring war, Bob," Daniel said. "Once we start active operations against them." "The war's already started, Shepard. They fired the first shot when they tried to steal Aurora. We're just fighting back." A sound from the basement stairs made everyone tense. Emma's voice small and worried. "Daddy, is it safe?" "Not yet, sweetheart. Stay down there a little longer." "Okay." The door closed again. Washington's expression softened. "She sounds like a tough kid." "She's had to be," Daniel replied. "This is what we're fighting for," Washington said, his voice carrying new intensity. "For her, for all the kids who deserve a world where conflicts are resolved through negotiation, not ammunition. Aurora isn't just technology, it's hope." "It's also incredibly dangerous if it falls into the wrong hands," Olivia pointed out. The same system that can shut down weapons can be modified to control them to turn defensive technology into the ultimate offensive tool. Which is why we need to ensure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. The Lighthouse Project has been developing a distribution strategy, simultaneous release to every nation's defense department, every peace organization, every university with a physics program. Make it so ubiquitous that no one can monopolize it. That's our plan too, Olivia admitted. But the technical challenges are significant but not insurmountable. I've brought you something that might help. Washington pulled out a drive from his pocket, set it carefully on the table. Quantum processing algorithms developed by a friend of mine at MIT. He's Lighthouse been working on this for 2 years. It could accelerate your timeline by weeks. Margaret scanned the drive with every security protocol she had before Olivia even thought about touching it. It's clean. No trackers, no viruses, no hidden code. Olivia picked up the drive, feeling its weight, not physical, but the weight of possibility. This is military-grade encryption. My friend used to work for DARPA before he realized what his research was being used for. He's been developing defensive applications ever since. We could use more friends like that, Daniel said, finally holstering his weapon. You have them, more than you know. Scientists, soldiers, teachers, doctors, people from every walk of life who are tired of living in a world where might makes right. They're all waiting for something to rally behind. Aurora could be that something. No pressure, Olivia said dryly. Washington smiled, the expression transforming his weathered face. You've already changed the game just by proving Aurora is possible. Now we need to help you finish it before the syndicate figures out where you are. How long before they do? Daniel asked. My disinformation campaign is good, but not perfect. You've got maybe 2 weeks before someone notices the patterns in the false data and starts looking at what we're trying to hide. After that, he shrugged, we'll need a new plan. We could move, Margaret suggested. I've got 3 other safe houses prepared. Running makes us reactive, Daniel countered. We need to be proactive, hit them before they hit us. That's where I come in, Washington said. Give me a list of what you need: equipment, personnel, intelligence, and I'll make it happen. The Lighthouse Project has resources you wouldn't believe. What we need is time, Olivia said. Time to perfect Aurora, time to build the distribution network, time to ensure it can't be weaponized. Then we'll buy you time. Starting tonight, the syndicate is going to have problems they didn't see coming. Security breaches, financial investigations, media leaks about their off-the-books operations, death by 1,000 cuts. That'll make them desperate, Daniel warned. Desperate enemies are unpredictable. Better desperate than organized. Besides, we've got something they don't. We're fighting for something bigger than profit or power. We're fighting for the future. Washington stood checking his watch. I need to go. My team thinks I'm running reconnaissance on a potential syndicate facility. If I'm gone too long, they'll start asking questions. How do we contact you, Mick? Daniel asked. You don't. I'll contact you. Every 3 days, encrypted burst transmission to Margaret's dark web protocol. If you don't hear from me for a week, assume I'm compromised and run. He moved toward the door, then paused. Shepherd that thing in Kandahar when you saved my life. Ancient history. Daniel cut him off. No, it's not. It's why I'm here. Debts matter. Loyalty matters. Doing the right thing matters. Don't forget that when things get dark, and they will get dark before this is over. Washington left the way he'd come, walking back to his vehicle with the measured pace of a man who'd learned patience in hard places. The 3 SUVs pulled away, disappearing into the forest as quickly as they'd appeared. Can we trust him? Olivia asked once they were gone. Marcus Washington saved my life 4 times in Afghanistan, Daniel said. If he says the Lighthouse Project is real, if he says they'll help, then yes, we trust him. I'm already seeing chatter about incidents in New York, Margaret reported from her station. A Prometheus Industries server farm just suffered a massive data breach. Files about their off-the-books operations are showing up on WikiLeaks. It's starting, Daniel said. The real war. Not with bullets and bombs, but with information and innovation. Olivia returned to her laboratory, Washington's drive in her hand. The algorithms it contained were elegant, brilliant, exactly what she needed to solve 3 problems that had been slowing her progress. With this, Aurora could be ready in 6 weeks instead of 12. Emma was allowed back upstairs once they'd confirmed the vehicles were truly gone. She curled up on the couch with a book trying to pretend everything was normal, but Olivia could see the questions in her eyes. "Who was that man?" Emma finally asked. "An old friend of your father's," Olivia said, sitting beside her. "Someone trying to help us." "Are more bad people coming?" "Maybe, but we have good people on our side too. More than we thought." "Like a team?" "Exactly like a team." Emma considered this, then nodded. "Good. Daddy says you should never fight alone if you can help it." That evening, as Olivia worked to integrate Washington's algorithms into Aurora's framework, she felt a shift in the air. They were no longer isolated, no longer fighting alone. The Lighthouse Project. Whoever they all were had given them something precious hope that they might actually succeed. Daniel found her in the lab at midnight, bringing coffee and companionship. "How's it going?" "These algorithms are incredible. They solve the synchronization problem I've been struggling with for weeks. If I can implement them correctly, Aurora's response time drops from seconds to nanoseconds. Fast enough to stop a missile after it's launched. Fast enough to stop the launch sequence before it completes. The weapon would never even fire." That's... Daniel set down his coffee, understanding the implications. "That's game-changing. No first strike advantage, no surprise attacks. Every conflict would have to begin with negotiation because violence would be impossible. In theory, we still need to test it, ensure there are no exploitable vulnerabilities, build in fail-safes so it can't be turned into an offensive weapon. But it's possible. Yes, for the first time I really believe it's possible." Daniel pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "You're going to change the world, Olivia Grant. We're going to change it, together." They stood there in the laboratory surrounded by quantum processors and encryption terminals, holding each other while the weight of what they were attempting pressed down on them. Outside the Montana wilderness stretched silent and dark, keeping their secrets for now. But soon, very soon, what they were building in this hidden cabin would emerge to challenge every power structure built on the threat of violence. Margaret's voice crackled over the intercom. "You need to see this. The Lighthouse Project just hit 3 more syndicate facilities. Financial records, communication logs, even video surveillance of illegal weapons deals. It's all going public." They rushed upstairs to find Margaret's screens filled with news feeds, social media explosions, and encrypted messages from sources around the world. The syndicate's secret war was being dragged into the light, and the response was immediate and overwhelming. "Stock markets are reacting," Margaret reported. "Every company connected to the syndicate is in free fall. Government investigations are being announced in 6 countries. This is coordinated on a scale I've never seen." "Washington wasn't exaggerating," Daniel said. "The Lighthouse Project has serious reach." "Which means the syndicate will respond with serious force," Olivia pointed out. "We just became their primary target." "Let them come," Daniel said, his soldiers' confidence evident. "We have allies now, resources, intelligence. This cabin isn't just a hiding place anymore, it's a fortress. A fortress protecting the future," Margaret added. As if sensing the momentous shift, Emma appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleepy eyes. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine, sweetheart," Daniel said, scooping her up. "Just grown-up stuff." "Important grown-up stuff. Very important." Emma looked at each of them in turn, then smiled. "Good. Important stuff means we're doing something that matters." Out of the mouths of babes, Olivia thought again. Everything they were doing, the danger, the sacrifice, the isolation, it all mattered, because it would create a world where Emma and millions of children like her could grow up without the shadow of violence hanging over them. "Back to bed, little one," Daniel said. "Tomorrow's a school day." They'd been homeschooling Emma, with Olivia teaching science and mathematics while Daniel handled history and physical education. Margaret had surprisingly turned out to be excellent at languages, teaching Emma Spanish and Mandarin alongside her English lessons. Once Emma was settled, the 3 adults reconvened in the living room. The fire had burned low, casting long shadows that seemed appropriate for the conversation they needed to have. "If Washington's timeline is right, we have 6 weeks to perfect Aurora and prepare for deployment," Olivia said. "That means no more distractions, no more delays. Everything else becomes secondary." "Agreed," Margaret said. "I'll coordinate with the Lighthouse Project, keep the syndicate off balance while you work." "And I'll handle security," Daniel said. This place becomes a hard target. Anyone comes for us, they'll wish they hadn't. What about Emma? Olivia asked. If things get dangerous. We have contingencies, Daniel said. Washington gave me contact information for a family in Canada completely off the grid. If we need to, we can get Emma there in 4 hours. She won't want to leave us. She won't have a choice. Her safety comes first always. They spent the rest of the night planning, preparing, transforming their quiet cabin into what it needed to become the birthplace of a new era. Aurora wasn't just technology anymore. It was a symbol of humanity's potential to choose peace over war, cooperation over domination. As dawn broke over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Olivia stood on the porch with Daniel's arm around her, watching the world wake up. Somewhere out there, the syndicate was marshaling its forces, preparing to strike. But here in this moment, she felt ready for whatever came next. No regrets? Daniel asked softly. None. How could I regret the path that led me to you, to this? They stood together as the sun climbed higher, knowing that each dawn brought them closer to the confrontation that would determine humanity's future. But they were no longer alone, no longer helpless. They had allies. They had Aurora, and most importantly, they had each other. The war for tomorrow had begun, and they intended to win it, not with weapons, but with the one thing more powerful than any arsenal: the hope of a world where conflict could be resolved without bloodshed, where children could sleep safely, where love could triumph over fear. Margaret's voice interrupted their moment. Incoming encrypted message from Washington. He sent us the locations of 6 more Lighthouse Project cells. We're not alone anymore, not by a long shot. Olivia smiled, feeling the pieces of a vast puzzle clicking into place. The janitor who'd whispered, "Don't run," had become her partner, her love, her co-conspirator in reshaping the world. The technology she'd developed to make money had become humanity's hope for peace. And the cabin that had been their hiding place was transforming into the command center for a revolution. 6 weeks. They had 6 weeks to perfect Aurora and deploy it before the syndicate could stop them. 6 weeks to change the course of human history. Then let's get to work, Olivia said, heading back to her laboratory with renewed purpose. Behind her, Daniel secured the perimeter while Margaret coordinated with their growing network of allies. And upstairs, Emma slept peacefully, unaware that she was the inspiration for everything they were fighting to achieve: a world where no child would ever again be used as leverage, where no parent would have to choose between their principles and their family's safety. The countdown had begun. 6 weeks to save the world or die trying. But as Olivia initiated the next phase of Aurora's development, she felt no fear, only determination. They'd come too far to fail now. The janitor and the CEO, the soldier and the scientist, the makeshift family in a Montana cabin, they were going to succeed because the alternative was unthinkable. The future was coming, ready or not, and they intended to be the ones who shaped it. The attack came on week 4, just as the morning mist was lifting from the valley. Olivia was in the laboratory running final calibrations on Aurora's defensive matrix when every alarm in the cabin screamed to life simultaneously. The quantum processors she'd been monitoring flickered as Margaret's emergency protocols kicked in, automatically backing up everything to secure servers scattered across the globe. Multiple hostiles approaching from 3 directions. Margaret's voice was steady despite the chaos. 20-plus operators, military-grade equipment. This isn't a probe. This is a full assault. Daniel was already moving his transformation from father to warrior, instantaneous. He pulled Emma from her breakfast, carrying her toward the basement safe room even as she protested. "Daddy, what's happening?" "Remember what we practiced, sweetheart. This is real now." "Are they coming for Aurora?" The child's perception was uncanny. "Yes, but they won't get it. Or you. I promise." Olivia's hands flew over her keyboard, initiating Aurora's first real-world test. If the system worked as designed, every weapon within a mile radius would become useless metal. But the field test protocols weren't complete. The power requirements were enormous, and one miscalculation could fry every electronic system in the cabin, including their defenses. "How long until they're in range?" she called out. 3 minutes, Daniel replied, sealing Emma in the safe room with a kiss to her forehead. "Maybe less if they're running hot." Aurora needs 5 minutes to charge. Then we buy you 5 minutes. Daniel grabbed his rifle, the one he'd cleaned every night since they'd arrived, and headed for his predetermined defensive position. Margaret, what's our backup status? Washington's people are 40 minutes out. Local law enforcement has been redirected. Someone's jamming their communications. The syndicate learned from last time, Daniel said grimly. They're not playing games anymore. Through the windows, Olivia could see them now, figures in black tactical gear moving through the trees with professional precision. These weren't the hired thugs who'd attacked the bank. These were elite operators, probably former special forces, the kind of people Daniel used to command. Olivia, can you accelerate Aurora's charging sequence? Margaret asked, while simultaneously coordinating their cyber defenses. Not without risking a cascade failure. The quantum entanglement needs to stabilize, or... She stopped mid-sentence as an idea struck her. Washington's algorithms included a compression protocol she hadn't fully explored. If she could implement it in real time... Actually, maybe I can. Give me 90 seconds. Gunfire erupted outside the sharp crack of Daniel's rifle, answered by a storm of automatic weapons. The cabin's reinforced walls held, but Olivia could hear bullets impacting like deadly hail. Daniel had positioned himself perfectly, using the cabin's architecture to create fatal funnels that forced the attackers into his kill zones. They're trying to flank... Margaret reported, her fingers never stopping their dance across multiple keyboards. I'm activating the perimeter defenses. The hidden automated systems they'd installed came online, motion-triggered flashbang smoke dispensers and frequency generators that produced disorienting ultrasonic pulses. Not lethal, but enough to slow professional operators and buy precious seconds. Aurora at 60%, Olivia announced, sweat beading on her forehead despite the cool mountain air. The compression algorithm was working, but the power draw was exceeding their generator's capacity. Margaret, I need you to reroute power from everything non-essential, including life support to the safe room. Everything except that. The lights went out, computers switching to battery backup. The cabin plunging into shadow, broken only by the glow of emergency lighting and muzzle flashes from outside. Daniel had dropped back to his second position, still picking his shots with surgical precision. They're adapting, he called out. Smoke screens and suppressing fire. They'll breach in 2 minutes. Aurora at 75%. An explosion rocked the cabin, a breaching charge on the reinforced door. It held, but barely. The next one wouldn't. Daniel, fall back to position 3, Margaret commanded, tracking the assault through their remaining cameras. You've got 6 operators converging on your location. He moved like smoke, displaced and reformed, never where the attackers expected. But he was one man against 20, and even his exceptional skills had limits. Aurora at 85%. Come on, come on. Another explosion, this time at the back entrance. The door held, but the frame cracked, daylight visible through the gaps. They were running out of time and options. I've got movement in the basement, Margaret said, tension finally cracking her composure. Someone's trying to access the safe room. No. Daniel abandoned his position, racing for the basement stairs. Anyone threatening Emma transformed him from tactical to primal consequences be damned. Aurora at 90%. The front door exploded, inward operators flooding through the breach with practiced precision. Margaret drew a pistol. Olivia hadn't even known she carried, laying down covering fire that was surprisingly accurate for someone who claimed to be just an analyst. 95%. Daniel's roar of rage echoed from the basement, followed by the sound of close-quarters combat bodies impacting walls, the crack of bones breaking the desperate struggle of a father protecting his child. An operator appeared in the laboratory doorway, rifle raised. Olivia's hand found the Glock Daniel had given her muscle memory from their training sessions taking over. She fired 3 times center mass, the operator stumbling backward in surprise as the bullets impacted his vest. Not fatal, but enough to buy her seconds. 98%. Margaret was pinned behind her overturned desk, trading fire with 3 operators who'd taken positions in the living room. Any time now would be good. 99%. A figure appeared beside Olivia. Not an operator, but Victor Crane himself. His appearance so unexpected, she almost didn't recognize him. He looked older, haggard, desperation replacing his usual smug confidence. Shut it down. he commanded, pressing a pistol against her temple. Shut down, Aurora, or I'll paint this laboratory with your brains. You kill me, you never get Aurora. I don't need Aurora anymore. I just need to ensure no one else gets it either. His finger tightened on the trigger. Choose quickly, Doctor. Grant. 100%, Olivia said quietly, her hand hovering over the activation key. Your move, Victor. Don't test me. I've lost everything because of you, my company, my reputation, my future. The least I can do is take you with me. Then you'll die knowing you failed. She met his eyes steadily. Aurora is already uploaded to servers worldwide. Kill me and it releases automatically. The world gets the technology anyway, and your death means nothing. You're bluffing. Am I? You've known me for years, Victor. Have I ever bluffed? The gunfire outside had stopped. Either Daniel and Margaret were dead or... Drop the weapon, Crane. Daniel's voice cold as winter steel. He stood in the doorway, blood streaming from a cut on his forehead, his rifle centered on Victor's head. You've got 3 seconds. I'll kill her, and I'll kill you. But here's what you don't understand. Aurora is already active. Has been for the last 10 seconds. Victor pulled the trigger. Nothing happened. He pulled again, confusion replacing determination. The gun was mechanically sound, but simply wouldn't fire. None of the weapons in the cabin would. Aurora's quantum field had rendered them all inert. Their firing mechanisms locked at the subatomic level. Daniel crossed the room in 2 strides, his fist connecting with Victor's jaw with the sound of a sledgehammer hitting meat. The older man crumpled unconscious before he hit the floor. Emma, Olivia asked immediately. Safe. Scared, but safe. I got there in time. Daniel pulled her into his arms, holding her tight enough that she could feel him shaking. God, Olivia, when I heard him in here with you. Aurora worked, she said into his shoulder, the magnitude of it just beginning to hit her. It actually worked. Every weapon within a mile is neutralized. Margaret appeared supporting herself on the doorframe. She had a nasty bruise developing on her cheek, but was otherwise intact. The operators are pulling back. They're shouting about weapon malfunctions, complete failure of all firearms. It's causing chaos in their ranks. How long will the effect last? Daniel asked. With the current power output, about 6 hours, but I can modulate it, create pulses, even expand the range if we can get more generators online. Washington's people are 10 minutes out, Margaret reported, checking her equipment. The syndicate operators are retreating, but they'll regroup. They'll figure out what happened and come back with countermeasures. Let them try, Olivia said, newfound confidence surging through her. Aurora worked in combat conditions against military-grade weapons with no significant failures. We just proved it's viable. Daniel zip-tied the unconscious Victor, then went to retrieve Emma from the safe room. She emerged pale, but determined, immediately running to Olivia. Did you stop them? She asked. Did Aurora work? It worked, sweetheart. No one got hurt because the weapons couldn't fire. So it's over. Olivia exchanged glances with Daniel and Margaret. Not over. But we won this battle. Washington's forces arrived as promised, securing the perimeter and rounding up the syndicate operators who'd been abandoned by their leadership when the retreat was called. Many seemed genuinely confused about what had happened, unable to comprehend how 20 military-grade weapons had simultaneously failed. Washington himself entered the cabin, taking in the damage with a professional eye. Aurora. Successful field test. Olivia confirmed. 100% weapon neutralization within the target radius. Jesus Christ, he breathed. You actually did it. You built something that makes violence obsolete. In a limited area for a limited time with massive power requirements, Olivia cautioned. We're far from global deployment, but you proved this concept. That changes everything. Washington noticed Victor, now conscious but secured. Mr. Crane, the Syndicate isn't going to be happy you led this failed assault. The Syndicate is finished, Victor spat. The moment Aurora's existence is confirmed, every government in the world will want it. The power structures we've built will collapse. Good, Washington said simply. They needed to collapse. The question is what we build to replace them. A world where might doesn't make right, Emma said quietly, still clinging to Olivia's hand. Where people have to use words instead of weapons. From your mouth to God's ears, little one, Washington said. He turned to Daniel. We need to move you. This location is burned. The syndicate knows where you are now. Where would we go? Daniel asked. They'll find us eventually wherever we run. Then don't run, Washington said. Come in from the cold. The Lighthouse Project has secured a facility official government backing full resources international protection. You can finish Aurora's development with the world watching. Make it public, make it transparent, make it impossible for the syndicate to stop without exposing themselves completely. That makes us targets for every extremist group on the planet, Margaret pointed out. You're already targets. At least this way you have the full protection of multiple governments and the public spotlight making it harder for anyone to move against you. Olivia looked at her makeshift family, Daniel bloodied but unbroken, Margaret brilliant and brave, Emma too wise for her years but still hopeful. They'd built something beautiful in this cabin, something worth protecting. What do you think? She asked them. I think hiding hasn't worked, Daniel said slowly. Maybe it's time to stand in the light. The technology is ready for broader testing, Margaret added. And with government resources, we could accelerate development significantly. Emma tugged on Olivia's hand. Would we still be together? Always, Olivia promised. No matter what, we stay together. Then I vote yes, the child said firmly. Washington smiled. I'll make the arrangements. We can have you moved within 24 hours. Full diplomatic protection, new identities if you want them, and a facility that makes this cabin look like a shack. What about Victor? Daniel asked. Mr. Crane will be very helpful in explaining the syndicate's structure and operations. Won't you, Victor? Victor laughed bitterly. You think you've won? The syndicate has resources you can't imagine, connections in every government, every military. They'll never let Aurora see widespread deployment. They won't have a choice, Olivia said quietly, because in 12 hours, I'm releasing the basic principles behind Aurora to every major university physics department in the world. Not the full technology, just enough to prove it's possible. Once that information is out there, it can't be contained. Scientists everywhere will start working on their own versions. The arms race becomes a peace race. You can't, Victor breathed. The chaos that would cause the chaos of peace, the disruption of defense replacing offense. Yes, it will be chaotic, but it will also be the beginning of something better. She turned to her computer, began composing the message that would change everything. The equations were elegant in their simplicity, the proof of concept undeniable. Within hours of release, every competent physicist would understand what Aurora represented. Olivia, Daniel said softly, once you send that, there's no going back. There was no going back the moment they took Emma, the moment we decided to fight, the moment we chose each other. She looked at him, her partner in this impossible journey. The only way forward is through. He kissed her right there in the damaged laboratory with Washington and Margaret and Emma watching with Victor Crane cursing from his restraints. It was a kiss that said everything words couldn't: pride, love, fear, hope, and absolute commitment to the path they'd chosen. Send it, he said against her lips. She pressed enter. The message went out, propagating through academic networks, reaching universities in Beijing, Moscow, London, Delhi, Tel Aviv, every major research institution on the planet. Within minutes, her secure phone was buzzing with calls from physicists who understood the implications. It's done, she said. Aurora is no longer our secret. Then we'd better get you somewhere secure before the world comes knocking, Washington said. The transport is already en route. Gather what you need, we leave in 1 hour. The next hour was controlled chaos. Olivia backed up all her research, ensuring nothing critical was left behind. Margaret coordinated with the Lighthouse Project, arranging secure communications and logistics. Daniel packed their few personal possessions, the things that had made the cabin feel like home. Emma helped where she could, her young face serious with the weight of change. Will we ever come back here? She asked, looking around the cabin that had been their sanctuary. Probably not, Daniel told her honestly, but we'll make new memories wherever we go. As long as we're together, he confirmed. As they prepared to leave, Olivia took one last look at the laboratory where Aurora had been born. The quantum processors were still humming, maintaining the defensive field that had saved them all. Soon, similar fields would exist across the globe, making violence an obsolete method of conflict resolution. "You did it," Margaret said, joining her. "You actually created something that could end war." "We did it," Olivia corrected. "All of us. And we're just getting started." The transport helicopters arrived precisely on schedule, military models with international markings, a joint operation between multiple nations who'd decided Aurora was too important to leave in any single country's hands. As they boarded, Victor Crane was loaded into a separate helicopter, his destination a secure facility where he'd be extensively debriefed about the syndicate's operations. He caught Olivia's eye one last time. "This isn't over," he called out. "The people I work for don't give up. They'll find a way to corrupt your precious Aurora, turn it into everything you fear." "Maybe," Olivia called back, "but they'll have to do it with the whole world watching, and that's a very different game than the one they're used to playing." The helicopter lifted off the cabin, shrinking below them, until it was just another speck in the Montana wilderness. Emma pressed against the window, watching their former home disappear, then turned to curl between Olivia and Daniel. "Where are we going?" she asked. "To a place called the Geneva Initiative," Washington explained from his seat across from them. "It's a new international research facility created specifically for projects like Aurora. You'll have everything you need to complete the technology, and more importantly, you'll have the protection and support of the international community." "Geneva," Emma said thoughtfully. "That's in Switzerland, right? Do they have mountains there too?" "Beautiful mountains," Margaret assured her, "and excellent schools where you can learn with other children your age. But I'll still live with you, all of you. Wild horses couldn't separate us," Daniel promised, pulling his daughter closer. As the helicopter flew east toward the rising sun, Olivia's phone buzzed with responses to her academic release. Scientists from around the world were confirming her calculations, expressing amazement at Aurora's elegance, already proposing collaborations and improvements. One message stood out from Dr. Sarah Chen at MIT Washington's contact, who'd provided the crucial algorithms. "Congratulations on changing the world. The Lighthouse Project stands ready to assist in any way necessary. The dawn you've created will illuminate more than you know." "Look," Emma said, suddenly pointing out the window. Below them, across the American heartland, lights were coming on as cities woke to a new day. But it wasn't just electricity illuminating the darkness. It was the light of possibility, of hope, of a future where conflicts could be resolved without bloodshed. "It's beautiful," Emma said softly. "It's just the beginning," Olivia replied, taking Daniel's hand in hers while her other arm wrapped around Emma. Margaret was already working on her tablet, coordinating with their new facility, ensuring everything would be ready when they arrived. "The Geneva Initiative has assembled a team of the world's best physicists to work with you," she reported. "They're calling it the most important scientific collaboration in human history." "No pressure," Daniel said dryly. "We've handled pressure before," Olivia reminded him, thinking of that morning in the bank that now seemed like a lifetime ago. Together, he agreed, kissing the top of her head. The sun climbed higher as they flew toward their new future, painting the sky in shades of gold and possibility. Behind them, the cabin stood empty but not abandoned. It had served its purpose as the birthplace of a new era. Ahead lay challenges. Olivia couldn't fully imagine political resistance, technical hurdles, the inevitable attempts to weaponize what she'd created for peace. But she was no longer the isolated CEO making decisions in a boardroom. She had a family now forged in crisis but strengthened by choice. She had allies around the world, brilliant minds ready to help perfect Aurora. And most importantly, she had proof that the technology worked, that a world without violence was possible. Emma had fallen asleep against her shoulder, trusting in the adults around her to keep her safe while she dreamed. Looking at the child's peaceful face, Olivia remembered her innocent suggestion that everyone should have Aurora's remote control, ensuring mutual defense through universal access. It was brilliant in its simplicity, the kind of solution only a child could see clearly. "What are you thinking?" Daniel asked quietly. "About Emma's idea. Universal distribution, not controlled by any government or organization, but available to everyone simultaneously. That's either genius or chaos. Maybe both. But it's better than the alternative, someone monopolizing the technology and becoming the world's de facto ruler. The syndicate won't give up easily, Daniel warned. They've built their entire power structure on the threat of violence. Take that away. And they're just wealthy criminals with no leverage, Margaret finished, which is why they'll fight this to their last breath. Then we'd better make sure we're breathing longer, Daniel said with grim determination. Washington leaned forward from his seat. The Lighthouse Project has been preparing for this moment for years. We have people in positions throughout governments, militaries, and corporations worldwide. When the syndicate makes their move, we'll be ready. It won't just be the syndicate, Olivia pointed out. Every dictator, warlord, and arms dealer on the planet will want us stopped. And every parent who wants their children to grow up safe will want us to succeed, Washington countered. This isn't just about technology, it's about choosing what kind of future we want. The helicopter banked following the sunrise east. In the distance, Olivia could see the lights of Chicago, millions of people starting their day, unaware that everything had changed. Soon the news would break. The existence of Aurora would become public knowledge, and the debate would begin should humanity embrace a technology that could end war but would fundamentally alter the balance of power. There's something else, Washington said, his tone serious. The president wants to meet with you before you leave for Geneva. She's putting the full weight of the United States behind Aurora's development. Playing politics with peace, Daniel muttered. Playing politics for peace, Washington corrected. There's a difference. Without governmental support, Aurora remains a laboratory curiosity. With it, it becomes policy law, the new normal. And every government will want their own version, Margaret added, controlled limited serving their interests. Which is why we release it to everyone simultaneously, Olivia said firmly. No favorites, no exclusive access. The technology belongs to humanity, not to any flag or ideology. That's a beautiful principle, Washington said. Putting it into practice will be the challenge of our lifetime. Emma stirred, mumbling something in her sleep about horses and mountains. Daniel adjusted her position, making sure she was comfortable, the gesture so tender it made Olivia's heart ache with love for this man who could be deadly one moment and gentle the next. She's why we're doing this, Daniel said quietly. Her and every child like her. So they never have to see what we've seen, never have to lose what we've lost. Sarah would be proud, Washington said gently. Your wife, I mean. She believed in peace through medicine. You're achieving it through technology. We're achieving it through sacrifice, Daniel corrected. Olivia gave up her company, her life's work. Margaret gave up her comfortable board position. Everyone involved in this has sacrificed something. And gained something better, Olivia added. Purpose. Family. Hope. The radio crackled to life. Transport Alpha, this is Geneva Initiative. We're tracking you on approach. Dr. Grant, the facility is fully operational and awaiting your arrival. The world is watching. Copy that, Geneva, the pilot responded. ETA 4 hours. 4 hours until they landed in the spotlight of global attention. 4 hours until the quiet phase of Aurora's development ended and the public phase began. 4 hours to prepare for whatever came next. I should review the technical specifications, Olivia said, reaching for her laptop. You should rest, Daniel countered. You've been running on adrenaline for hours. Aurora is ready. You're ready. Take a moment to breathe. She leaned into him, feeling the solid warmth of his presence. How do you do it? Stay so calm when everything is chaos. Training and knowing what I'm fighting for. He gestured to Emma, to Margaret, to her. This is worth any risk, any sacrifice. Even giving up the shadows, going public. Especially that. I've been hiding for 3 years, Olivia. Maybe it's time to stand in the light, no matter how uncomfortable it might be. Margaret looked up from her tablet. Speaking of standing in the light, you should see this. She turned the screen toward them. News outlets worldwide were already reporting on the academic release, physicists being interviewed about Aurora's implications, governments calling emergency sessions to discuss the technology. Breakthrough technology promises end to war, read one headline. Defense Revolution weapons made obsolete. Read another. The shot not heard around the world was particularly clever. It's begun, Olivia said softly. No turning back now. No turning back. Daniel agreed, his arm tightening around her. As they flew toward their new future, toward Geneva and the international collaboration that would determine humanity's path. Olivia thought about the strange journey that had brought them here. A CEO and a janitor, thrown together by violence, united by purpose, bonded by love. It sounded like a story too strange to be true, yet here they were. Emma woke as they began their descent toward a refueling stop. She looked out the window at the world below, then up at the adults around her. Are we heroes now? She asked with the directness only children possess. No, sweetheart, Daniel said. We're just people trying to do the right thing. But isn't that what heroes are, out of the mouths of babes once again? Olivia kissed the top of Emma's head, breathing in the scent of innocence and hope. Maybe you're right, she said. Maybe that's exactly what heroes are. The helicopter touched down for refueling, and Olivia saw the security detail Washington had arranged, serious men and women who understood they were protecting possibly the most important technological development in human history. The weight of it should have been crushing, but instead she felt lifted by purpose. Ready for this? Daniel asked as they prepared to take off again. Ready, she confirmed, and meant it. The sun was fully up now, burning away the morning mist, revealing the landscape in all its complex beauty. Somewhere out there, the syndicate was regrouping, planning their next move. Victor Crane was probably revealing secrets that would topple shadow empires. The world's governments were scrambling to understand what Aurora meant for their military doctrines. But here in this helicopter with her chosen family, Olivia felt a peace she hadn't known in years. They'd done it turned to desperate flight from corporate assassination into a revolution in human conflict resolution. The road ahead would be difficult, dangerous, and uncertain, but they would walk it together, and that made all the difference. Geneva Initiative. This is Transport Alpha, the pilot announced. We're airborne and en route. ETA 2 hours. 2 hours until the next chapter began. 2 hours until the world changed forever. Olivia closed her eyes, feeling Daniel's steady presence beside her, Emma's trust against her shoulder, Margaret's competent protection around them all. The janitor had whispered, "Don't run," on that marble floor, and she'd listened. Now they were running toward something instead of away toward a future where those words would never need to be whispered again, where no one would have to cower on cold floors while violence decided their fate.